So, this is it. This is the end of the year. Because from tomorrow, festive period, festive season, people don't even know what they're doing. They don't know where they are until they're told, okay, where? It's January. And they're like, when did that happen? So this is it. Today is the last day you're going to have a meaningful conversation with anyone this year.
Today?
You're going to have a meaningful conversation. I told you, somebody owes you money.
Oh, no, that's story forget.
After today, ngojea January, my friend. And there are people who owe me money, by the way. That's why I keep reminding you all these stories, because it's something at the back of my mind.
I had missed it. You're reminding yourself.
That they.
That they. These
Come
faceless
on.
are now people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eish, bwana. Anyway, ni sawa tu. Tuwasherehekee Christmas. Pesa yangu.
You're being significantly philanthropic. Okay.
Kule Christmas na pesa yangu. Sababu mimi watoto wangu hawafai kukula, si ndio?
You know it is a very Kenyan, I don't know, Ndu.
Sir?
Is it African? Is it Nigerian? When people owe you money and they bring their children and wife into the discussion, and you're thinking, okay, I don't even know these people.
But they are the reason why they
Unajua
cannot give
sasa
you money.
watoto wangu.
Unajua mtoto alienda alifukuzwa shule.
That wasn't part of the conversation.
When I was giving you the money.
No, when that arrangement was being made, it wasn't there. Now they are very much, and then, you know, my problems are really many.
You don't have problems.
And I'm thinking, okay.
You don't have problems.
And a parent was hospitalized.
Yes.
So
There's a
medicine.
logic, I believe, that escapes me. I'm trying to understand. When I understand it, I'll explain it. Because I hear it often enough to understand that there's a belief that if someone brings in the troubled nature of their domestic setup, your heart will melt. They forget you also have a domestic
Set up.
and it may be even more troublesome than theirs.
But you're just not letting on about it.
But it's not their business.
Exactly.
When you're alive and well, part of knowing you're alive is having problems. Yes. It keeps you alive. It makes you figure out. Wait until you hear today's proverb.
Hey, boss. Welcome to the show. Okay? Now, today we'll be talking to the head of one of those companies that has been in this country for so long. We've used its products for very many years, but never really considered that it's older than Kenya itself. And we'll be talking to them this morning. Also, some very big news coming out of the courts yesterday. Big ruling, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And this is with regards to now that Kinoti started this hornet's nest. Hey, it's all out here.
The courts are rolling.
The conversation is out here.
The wheels of justice are moving.
So who investigated? Who did not? Who should have? Why did they not? Bas. That conversation. So a major ruling, big ruling came out of the courts yesterday that says the government is responsible for not investigating or properly conducting investigations into some cases of the 2008, 2007 to 8 post-election violence. We'll be looking at that and seeking to understand exactly what that means. This and more conversations in the Situation Room this morning. We also know that today is the final day that Mr. David Kenani Maraga will be in office. He'll still be Chief Justice until sometime mid-January when he officially then retires. But he proceeds on leave today. Oh, yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. He has served the country.
He has. He has. In fact, the one thing you cannot say that Maraga's tenure was dull.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
And so it said that Philomena Mwilu will be in an acting capacity until a new Chief Justice is appointed. And Okiom Tata has now gone to court to stop the appointment of her in an acting capacity.
Yeah.
And I'm certain he has good reasons.
Of course. Of course, he has good reason. Okay, anyway, let's start where we always begin.
Wait,
And
why didn't
this
you greet
is-
us today?
Oh,
He did greet us.
it's because people owe me money. How are you, Ndu?
He did greet us. Ndu.
No, how are you?
Me?
See, I wanted to know how you are. That's
Me?
why. Yeah. Okay. City, how are you?
I am very well.
Eric is still on the way to tell us.
Eric
I've
is
told you.
no, Eric is well. There's no question about it. He's definitely well.
He's frustrated.
No, he's not. No, he's not. The thing is, when people talk about being owed money, you know the people who owe you money. So it's not as though you don't know them.
This is a message to the people that I owe money.
Yes.
Also, so you know.
Sijalipwa sasa, unajua huwezi.
See,
Sina kitu.
Eric has gotten to the heart of the matter.
And you? How are you, City?
I am very well, thank you.
Good.
I'm reminded of, Eric, thinking of this matter that you have raised so early in the morning. I'm reminded of someone who was narrating a story to me about someone who actually owed them money and who genuinely had a problem at the time, overcame the problem, but didn't see that it was important for them to pay back. So, of course, when this friend of mine went to ask for his money, the person very calmly told him, even the government of Kenya owes money. Yes.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So,
So
this,
relax.
So this small amount of money you're bothering me
You're
about,
getting your knickers in a twist over.
what?
Calm down. Sheesh.
I thought that was a bit unique.
Hata Kenya iko na deni, my friend.
Yes, so the Kenya government was also brought into conversation.
Okay. So, COVID,
Okay.
how we doing?
The United States now has lost 1% of its population to COVID-19. 1% of Americans have died as a result of COVID, with 299,692 deaths in the US. And now 16,039,393 cases of COVID having been reported in the country. We are now looking at world figures of 70,711,368.
Right.
The numbers continue to grow. It just seems that there's no let up as far as this is concerned, especially in the Western Hemisphere. Let's look at the numbers that were recorded in the US yesterday. 217,779 cases yesterday, the highest number in the last 6 weeks. The highest number ever recorded. 2,974 deaths. New deaths. They're categorical about this. That there's 2,974 new deaths as of yesterday in the US. So in terms of a country that's battling with this, the US is right up there. So let's look at Kenya and what we see now in terms of what has been 90,000 now is where Kenya lies, 90,305 cases and 1,568 deaths. Yesterday, Kenya recorded 644 new cases and 16 new deaths. And again, still continuing. We've also seen that testing has reduced considerably over the last 10 or so days. They say that they're hoping to pick this up again. These are the reports that we're getting from the Ministry of Health, hoping that they, ramp up testing again, because it would appear the testing that's taking place is when people present to hospital. We are not seeing the targeted or community testing that we saw. NMS did it once in September, and it has not happened again. They hope to do it once they're able to get more supplies, more test kits, and more reagents. So again, giving rise to the belief that even with the numbers that are being recorded, there's much more in terms of the prevalence of COVID-19 in Kenya. Okay?
Hey. Okay.
Yeah.
And that talk of lockdown and all.
Yeah, it's... everybody is waiting for tomorrow to hear what President Uhuru Kenyatta will have to say in terms of announcements of what will happen over the festive period. He has been advised. The National Committee sat with him on Wednesday. And they gave their recommendations. So we will hear during his Jamhuri Day speech tomorrow what then has been suggested and what now they're going to ask Kenyans to do.
You've got to remember that learners are in school until the 23rd,
Third,
is it?
yes.
So you can't have a lockdown when kids are all over
They
the
must
country.
come home first. They must come home.
So there's no lockdown. Get it.
So let's wait and see. It could be what they're asking, folks to do when the Christmas festivities begin.
We'll be reminded of our responsibility.
There's if we were to simply speak anecdotally, you would argue that very many Kenyans have not been adhering to the norms, the safety norms of COVID.
Yes.
But again, speaking anecdotally. But on the other hand, if you were again to speak anecdotally, you would actually realize that the vast majority of Kenyans actually do adhere.
Do adhere.
Yes,
right?
circumstances, resources notwithstanding, they do adhere. Okay. Now, when it comes to a holiday like Christmas, it's going to be difficult. It's just the reality. It's going to be very, very difficult. But even as we look at this, nothing can beat what we have been seeing in the US and in some of the developed countries. Because if you're talking about a blatant disregard for these norms, it's not with us. Not really. Ours is not blatant. Ours is forced circumstances. Here you are, you're supposed to do certain things which you honestly would like to, but you cannot. By the time you're being told a story of how the disposable face masks are being washed and reused, what do you think that tells you? Is that the story of someone who does not want to adhere?
Of course they want to adhere.
Yes, precisely. By the time you have 3,000 deaths in a day, you know that isn't a small thing.
It's interesting that you said, because there's a report today, and we'll look at that with more details, but the youth have said in Kenya that God and the hot climate is what has protected us from COVID-19. The country's young population says that they are not safe because they have not traveled. They are young and they have their trust in the hot weather. Belief in God is one of the reasons 7 in 10 youths do not think they are at risk of contracting COVID-19, according to a new report. So they pray and they sit in the sun.
It's a good thing. It's a good place to start. Yeah. Because, everything else, you have to look at what is the best thing that you can do, basically, to keep yourself safe. Yeah. That is the lived experiences of youth.
74% of young people believe their risk of contracting COVID-19 is low. 74. And they make up the majority of the population in Kenya. But they believe that, getting it.
By the way,
but this finding, this survey was being conducted in April and May. Okay, remember that time? That's the time when many people are asking, "Do you know anyone who has COVID?"
Well, they said that.
Also
Yeah, this was done in April and May. They don't know if this is still the case. However, it could still be. But from the laxity in adhering to the containment measures, you could see that it could still be the case, whereby they say, we don't feel that we're at risk of getting it. Those beliefs could still ring through even December, the way they did in April.
Yeah.
they may very well do. They may, but again, consider. If you have a pandemic such as the one that we have, and every news item you read from places where you didn't think it would affect them is as dire as we read or as we hear, and you just compare the numbers, not your reality. You'll look at the numbers and say, no, we are not in such a bad place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what's the numbers of people who are infected in Kenya?
The number of people in Kenya? 90,000. Yeah.
How many people have died?
1,568.
America, double that number, one day.
Yeah.
Us,
triple that number, almost.
A single day.
Us, cumulatively.
Imagine.
Okay, so anyone look at these numbers, they'll tell you, we don't really have that problem that you're talking about. And what I'm trying to say is that you will actually not be wrong.
16 minutes after 6. Time for us to take a look at the weather and see who is online. And then we'll be saying hello to them. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Okay? So say hello to us, and then we will also say hello to you. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Next week on The Great Kenyan Bake Off, Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's the final.
All right, let's do this.
My hands are not shaking right now.
Hopefully, nothing goes wrong today.
Our last 3 intrepid bakers will have to bring out their absolute A
You
game.
ready for some smoke?
Watch as they battle it out in a technical that really challenges their skills and a showstopper that will push their creativity to the limit. Don't miss the drama as we find out who will be crowned Kenya's next top amateur baker.
And the winner is...
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, tuende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Conditions in Nairobi. It's mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 17 through today into the weekend with a chance of rain. Partly cloudy in Nakuru at 15, highs of 26. 13 degrees and clear conditions in Nyeri, highs of 24 and lows of 10. Partly cloudy in Eldoret at 11, highs of 23. We're also looking at partly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 19. Throughout the day, we'll see highs of 27. It's also 19 in Kakamega and partly cloudy, highs of 27 and a chance of rain later on. There's a high chance of rain this morning in Mombasa. It's mostly clear at the moment, though. We'll go to highs of 31. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 19. We'll go to highs of 27 and come down to lows of 16. It's raining in Kampala this morning at 21. We'll go to highs of 25 today and lows of 18. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 27. Johannesburg is clear this morning at 20. The highs will be 27 and lows of 18, and mostly clear in Lagos this morning for a change at 32. That will be the high, coming down to lows of 25. 25 in Kinshasa this morning. Light rain, highs of 32 and lows of 23. It's sunny in Beijing at 3 degrees. It'll go to a high of 6 and lows of -6 today. It'll be bitterly cold. Paris, 7 degrees and mostly cloudy. Highs of 11 and back down to lows of 7. 7 will be the low in London today. Currently rain showers at 9. Add that to the ice. It's not too much fun. Highs of 11. And for now, in New York, it's still Thursday night. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 10 and lows of 2.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice.
Hello, 20 minutes after 6. Let's see who is online. Good morning, Twitter birds.
Good morning, Shirage. Already on the commuter train. Where do you go every day?
To town.
Comes to Nairobi.
Surely. What are you asking?
Exactly that. What's wrong?
Do you work on the train?
Or is there a quota system where he's only allowed to ride on that train for, say, twice a week and thereafter? Huh?
I'm just asking.
Yes, okay.
Maybe Shirage is the driver.
The master.
Bana.
Natangoje driver wa train aitwa Coxswain.
Hey, that's for ferry.
Coxswain boat.
Ship boat. Yamaji.
Ship boat. Yes.
Nai.
Yeah.
Pilot.
No.
Pilot sounds like a good term
Master.
because
He's not master.
even a tuk-tuk ride as a pilot. So yeah, train, big pilot.
Okay, so Waterman Jeffrey is in Minneapolis and he says, morning guys, Ndu was concerned if I don't sleep. Please tell her, me. Nobody goes to sleep at 9 p.m. Hey, CT does. That's the time I leave work and I connect to Bluetooth in my car and listen to the mature talk until 11 p.m. I know she was joking. Oh, okay. Ondicho.
Who else?
Ondicho says, good morning from Kwamtusi in Mwingi. Kev Santana, good morning, watching from Laikipia. Mombasa is listening according to Brian Kuyanda, and Lebanon is tuning from Nandi County. El Burgon, John, hi, I see you.
Right.
Reagan Hanskel Nyandinga. Hey, okay. I can't.
Let me read it.
Okay, thank you.
Sabalheri nyote wakubwa wanawapata kwa njia iliyo safi. Msalimie mwalimu.
Mwalimu amesalimika.
Super. Titus Umbeta says good morning, and Charity's tuned in from Nakuru. Benson Mumo, good morning from Mombasa County 001. Good morning, everybody.
Kila Mutu, good morning, and thank you very much for tuning in this lovely Friday morning. C.T. Muga, today's proverb. Wait till you hear today's proverb. Hayawi, hayawi, mwishowe hua.
Wow. Right. God created lands and lakes and moors for man to live, but the desert so that he can find his soul. This is a Tuareg saying. I'm going to repeat it so that you hear it again. God created lands and lakes and moors for man to live, but the desert so that he can find his soul.
Okay. So the Tuareg just accepting that they'll die in the desert.
Okay.
Not many distractions in the desert. There's a consistency that you don't find in many other places.
A time for you to find out your true. It's said that since we keep making these connections with Damascus in the political space in Kenya, after the Damascus experience, Paul disappeared and he went to the island of Crete, I think it was, which there was an isolated place. So he went away to this isolated place for 3 years before he came back. Many people think that he was on the Damascus road and then immediately went and started converting people. But he actually went away for a very long time.
3 years.
3 years. He's away for 3 years.
The entire duration that Jesus was preaching.
All right. Then he came back, renewed, refreshed, because he was in that place where he found his soul. Me, I like that problem for today.
Told you, if you wait, the waiting isn't just to hear it. The waiting is for it to sink. When it sinks, you will realize the enormity of the simple truth that can be found in that proverb.
If you find yourself in the desert, just know that
you have time.
You have time. God is looking for his soul.
No, he has given you the soul. He wants you to have a little communication with your soul.
Let's look at the headlines this morning. Where do you want to start?
Okay. The top of the Standard today. MPs got 2.7 billion, CT, it's the one with 9 zeros, shillings in illegal perks. So now these billions are illegal. In a landmark ruling, the court has ordered Parliament to recover within 1 year money it illegally paid to members after judges yesterday found that the PSC had no powers to allocate 250,000 shillings monthly to every MP without the authority of the Salaries Commission. So, MPs now must refund more than 2.7 billion shillings collectively, of course, that they illegally allocated themselves for house allowance. The High Court has ordered the Parliamentary Service Commission to recover the money in 1 year. Justice Pauline Nyamwea, Weldon Korir, and John Mativo yesterday found that the Commission had no powers to allocate 250,000 shillings monthly to every MP and backdate it to 2018 without the authority of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. For 26 months, taxpayers paid 104 million shillings each month to MPs illegally. The judges dismissed the PSC's plea that it allows current MPs to earn equal salaries as those who served in the 11th Parliament and to keep the legal payout. Okay? So the orders are as such. The SRC has exclusive powers to set MPs' house allowance. PSC acted illegally and beyond its powers. Current lawmakers cannot benefit from a law that they set themselves. The PSC cannot set allowances without the approval of the SRC. Court cannot fault the SRC for limiting the number of parliamentary committee sittings. The PSC should recover the money from the MP's salaries within 12 months and all parties to shoulder their own cost of the case. Dun, 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 dun.
And this is one of those cases where we have Okia Omtata on the same side as the Law Society of Kenya and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission and the Attorney General of the Republic.
All on one side.
All on the same side saying, you know what, the Parliamentary Service Commission here did not have, in fact, the Attorney General, Kihara Kariuki, said it is illegal for MPs to get an additional 250k each for house allowances because the Parliamentary Service Commission never consulted the SRC and the money was not approved. But do you see yourselves getting this money back?
Who yourselves, Kenya?
But yes, I do.
How?
They don't
Deduct
ask-
it from the
They
salary.
just
Money.
deduct it.
They'll deduct it from the salary.
In 1 year.
Yes, no.
They still have 2
The
more
amount
years
of
to go.
money divided by X.
You know
Sorry,
the
You're
thing.
talking about you're talking about the 250k for house allowance per person. So deduct that within a year.
How many are they?
Who?
MP?
416.
The whole money that they're looking for is how much? Take the whole money divided by the number of
2.7.
MP.
No, you're looking at 250k per MP. So deduct each MP 250,000 shillings.
You know, if your pay
From their
slip,
salary
if your
every
pay slips reads -5, that is your problem.
That's not the issue.
It'll now read minus
Minus
250 and
245.
5.
Yeah. It will read now. It was -5 before Abi. It will be now minus 255.
It's okay. They'll just, have more mileage allowance to claim and the extra 250k claiming in allowance that you deduct it. They'll find ways anyway.
You know, this claiming, when you're an MP, you represent a certain area. It is known where that place is.
Yeah.
Okay? And what is even interesting, even the distance from the city of Nairobi is known. So how is it that people go around putting up claims that are reported to be exorbitant when
That they
these
went
pe-
450
Yeah,
kilometers from Nairobi to Naivasha, for example.
and then and you're an MP for Embakasi. How do you do that?
Magic. I'm telling you, there are magical things that
What
happen.
for something like this to happen, then you'll have, many committee sittings outside Nairobi. So you'll have, for example, the transport committee going to inspect the transport and roadworks in Marsabit, in Moyale. They'll go all the way to see whether the Lapset project is actually starting. So they'll start with Lamu, go along the Lapset
Every
corridor,
day.
all the way up to the...
Every day, every month, for a whole year.
No. That is one. The next time the same committee has several sittings, they've summoned, every sitting there's sitting allowance. Just increase the amount of allowance that you're receiving by 250 every month. Ndio urudishia watu pesa yao kama hiyo ndio shida. They want their money back. I'll find it. They'll get it. That's it.
You know what I find disturbing? What I honestly find disturbing is that as you're describing it, it's actually very factual. But it's also telling me that it is considered normal. That's what I find disturbing. Yes.
That it's normal and accepted that they'll find
Yes,
a way around
yes,
it. That's
yes.
the painful part.
Yes.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
the painful part.
They will.
Okay.
6:30. So let's take this break. Take a look at the traffic, and then we'll look at more headlines. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, and we thank you very much for tuning in this Friday morning, the 11th day of December 2020. I said this is the end of the sane year, and then from now until the 1st of January, people are all over doing all manner of things and not even considering anything. It's just holiday season after Jamhuri Day in Kenya. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co.
Okay, well, a Friday like no
Africa
other.
to
There
start
is a
now.
trailer that has stalled on the southern bypass this morning, and it's lost control actually. So just after the first set of bumps, The hindsight is blocking the entire road. So as you're going if you're leaving Mombasa Road out in that direction, that's what you're going to find. So please approach with caution, and you want to slow down because it's right in the middle of the road. You might see it at just a bit too late. So the southern bypass is out of contention this morning, at least for now. So please be very careful as you're approaching there. All right, starting to clog up already on Mombasa Road from the SGR, then moving forward, but not too bad as yet. This Friday morning, so we expect a lot of outbound traffic today. Also on Thika Road, coming into the CBD is not too bad either. Not take you long to get into the CBD. All right, remember the roads that you can use. The Eastern Bypass not giving us any problems today. Red Hill Bypass coming out of Westlands also flowing quite smoothly. Waiaki Way is slow. The construction has taken place and it's ramped up quite some, so that slows down traffic considerably as well. Okay, let's look at what it looks like in about half hour or so. But for now, it looks like Easy Street. Spice FMKE on Twitter. That's how you can talk to us or text us on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
To 7 o'clock, we're looking at the headlines in the papers. Page 3 of the Standard this morning. Kenyan in the US illegally faces 17 murder charges.
Jeez.
A Kenyan suspected of killing more than a dozen women in the US has been indicted on 3 additional charges of capital murder. Billy Chamirmir from Eldama Ravine in Baringo County now faces 17 capital murder charges and 2 counts of attempted capital murder. A capital murder charge in Texas carries one of 2 punishments, either the death sentence or life in prison without the possibility of parole. According to the Dallas Morning News, the healthcare worker has also been linked to 7 other deaths. The 48-year-old is accused of smothering elderly women and stealing their jewelry, cash and other items in Dallas and Collin counties in Texas to sell in the Dallas area pawn shops. He allegedly posed as a maintenance worker to gain access to the women's apartments. Hey.
Okay, it's a bit morbid.
Imagine.
Right. Page 10 of the Daily Nation. Health Ministry snubbed 576 million to cover medics. This is a report that has been written and the quotation is attributed to the National Treasury Principal Secretary Julius Muia. Now, the year 2019-2020, an allocation was made to the Ministry of Health for purposes of an insurance health cover for the ANHIF. Now, 2 things happened. One, the Ministry of Health did not requisition for it. Now, if you don't request for it, it can't be given to you. Number 2, if you don't utilize it, the money is taken back when that particular year ends. So, in essence, we are saying that had this cover been requisitioned by the ministry, there would have been enough money to provide cover for the medics or people who work within the Ministry of Health who required this particular cover. Now, the question that was running through my mind as I was reading this, who is it who is in charge of requisitioning this?
Yeah, what happened?
Yes. It's something
Because
I'd like to...
it's not like the National Treasury just decided to put this money there clandestinely without
No, it was part of the
Ministry
budget.
Health knowing. The Ministry of Health must
New.
have been the one that...
It's part of the budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
It must have come from the Ministry of Health that, you know what, as you're making this next financial year's budget, please consider. And then this is put in. So you would want to understand exactly why this didn't happen.
It's a question that I would really like to have answered because if, you see, just on the, a casually look at this particular scenario, you are saying that the trials and tribulations that health workers have been facing are as a result of someone neglecting to have enough of requisitioning, not looking for, just requisitioning the money that would have been paid to NHIF so that these people would have had the super cover or the cover that they required.
But then also, remember those games that the National Treasury also plays, huh? They say, you know, why we had allocated, it was in the budget, and it was there for to be taken and to be used. Miss Mercy Mwangangi, the Health Administrative Secretary, was in that hearing in the Senate. She says, They could not get the money to NHIF because it was allocated towards the end of June. A few days to the end of the financial year.
So?
That's the end of the financial year.
But the money was allocated for it within that year.
Yes.
So here is the National Treasury coming to tell you at 11 p.m. Oh, by the way, there is money for you, and it expires at 12 midnight.
Yes.
But the money is still there.
Still there.
The financial year ends.
But the money is still there.
The money is there, but it's a new financial year. It's no longer in the budget.
Yes, but it hadn't ended when they got it.
In this new year, they have requisitioned for more money in this new year to 520 in the current financial year for the same purpose, and the money was sent to the National Medical Insurance in less than 7 days. See, this year, the money that we're talking about is because they had already requisitioned for it.
Yes.
It was allocated. They accessed it.
But theirs wasn't at the 11th hour. It was just less than 7 days.
It was in the end of June.
Yes, 7 days. They had a week. Are you telling me they couldn't requisition that money in a week?
What's all this? What's the point? I mean,
I'm belaboring the point for a very simple reason that Dr. Mwangangi may be new to the ministry. But she's not the only person who works in that ministry. There are people who've been in that ministry for a long time, and they know exactly how these things work.
Yeah.
Okay? And it isn't the first time that the National Treasury is pulling this stunt.
Yep.
It's the same with the issues of IFMIS payments. All right? It is shut, it is opened. It is open at midnight when everybody is asleep. So it's one crazy musical chairs when you listen to the stories that go on. Now, I am saying, if that is the situation, then you really need to be wise. You need to be on your toes. Because complaining about it doesn't help. It's understanding the lay of the land. This is how this thing works. And if I want to benefit from it, this is how I need to position myself.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing, though. It sounds as if the National Treasury was saying, in fact, there was a lot of money that had been there. The questions are, why are the healthcare workers not covered? There was money. The Treasury says there was money. It was there in the budget. Then the Health Ministry says it was there in the budget, but it was not available to us until towards the end of June. Okay? So, bottom line here is, did the healthcare workers have access to health cover in the entire financial year?
No.
They didn't.
You give the money someone at the end of June and it was there.
Then you say they had insurance.
Eric, since we're discussing this, let's look at the reality of this situation, okay? The fact-finding, the truth that you've been speaking of, here we are with COVID. 1.7 people out of jobs, all right? It means there are 1.7 people who ordinarily...
Million.
Huh? Million, yes. Or I made it sound like a fraction.
Not a complete person.
No. 1.7 million. What you're saying is this 1.7 plus other institutions who have fallen prey to COVID are people who ordinarily would have been paying into government coffers in terms of taxes and what have you.
Yeah.
Remove that completely. It's not there. Okay? So it means the government earns less. Now, if the government earns less, then the government, in that period, that 1 year, remember, we were borrowing at the tune of something like 3 billion a day. Okay? So by the time you get towards the end of the year, we owe more than we know how to even spell or write. Okay? It means you have to pay more. You're collecting less, you have to pay more. How does that arithmetic work out? You are going to have shortfalls. Now, instead of being honest about it, the government decides, let's play games. According to us, it's been budgeted for, it's been allocated. In essence, it means nothing. Because it's just words. These issue of allocations become flesh when the money reaches you.
Yeah.
And you can actually expend it.
Yeah.
But before then...
Before that, it's just a story.
It's a
Before that, we're
story.
just chatting.
It's a story. You can just imagine someone telling you, Eric, every month ICT Muga will be giving you 5,000 shillings.
Without fail.
Without fail. Every month I'll be supporting you with 5,000 shillings, okay? But what you need to do is before the end of the month, you have to withdraw that money and use it. If the month ends, the 31st, the midnight on the 30th or 31st, whichever is the end of the month, your pesa imepotea, start the following month. And you know what I'll be doing? I'll be giving that money to Undu. I'll be sending to Undu's M-Pesa account for you to go and access the money there. So Eric is getting benefit from CT Muga, but the money goes through Undu. But for me to get to withdraw money through Undu, I have to give Undu my shopping list for the month. And then she has to approve.
Then I can give
And then you can withdraw the
which
money
was,
and give me
and
the
it was
cash.
allocated for you.
Yes. This month ends on the 31st. On the 31st, at midday, City sends you the money for that month that is coming to an end. Okay, it's for support for December. He sends it on the 31st at midday. Then you call me at about 4 p.m. Oh, by the way, Eric.
Where's your list?
Oh, City has sent the money. Bring the list for shopping. And you remember you have until midnight.
And the shop's closes.
Sawa, Ndu, let me actually just... And you know, City says you have to bring it physically, the list. Sawa, I'm coming to you. Oh, no, I'm in Lodwar.
But of interest, requisition doesn't mean you write the letter now and you get the money real time. No. No. Even that is a process which takes days.
Oh my God, it's such a crime
Just to
shame.
go through approvals and all. It's not just that, ile pesa yetu si utume.
In fact, you actually get the impression that someone asks the officers who normally authorize this requisition within the ministry, where are they? Oh, so-and-so is in Mombasa,
Yeah.
so-and-so is where, so-and-so, okay, release the money.
Sheesh. Okay. So, there's a 27-year-old woman who says she will not reveal the company's owners. And this is what she has told the KEMSA Probe Committee. On April 6, 2020, Margaret Mushemi walked into the KEMSA offices in Embakasi at exactly 9:42 a.m. with a letter of intent to supply personally protective equipment. By evening, she walked out with a tender to supply 4 billion shillings worth of PPE awarded to Killig Limited, a company she worked for and whose ownership changed hands 4 times in 4 months.
Okay.
The Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, did not do any due diligence on Killig, including finding out its financial capability to supply the goods, asking for copies of CR12, which is a form showing the shareholding, or any other documents required for pre-qualification. Now, these revelations were made by the 27-year-old Ivy Minyo, I think that's how you pronounce the name, who claimed to be one of the owners of Killig when she appeared before the National Assembly Public Investment Committee yesterday, as MPs sought to unravel the COVID scandal at KEMSA. The ownership of the company, which was registered on the 22nd of January this year and is located at the Methodist Ministries Center, was the subject of the tense debate as she initially took MPs in circles, refusing to reveal the real owners of the company. She told the Abdul Samwad Nasir-led committee that she assumed the role of director of Killig from one Collins Wanjala on the 6th of May. But before then, the committee heard that the company had other directors. I am aware, she said, that Collins did not register the company. There were other owners. It is these directors that Miss Minyo refused to name, saying doing so would go against the commitment she signed with her clients when she was their legal officer before later assuming the role of director. So she said she's saying nothing. She will not name names. She will not tell who.
She was
owns
told, come
what.
on, you know what? We are giving you 3 minutes to reveal the people who sold the company to you. She was like, okay, so you just let me go out. Give me 10 minutes. I go out and look for them. Comes back and says, I've spoken to one of them who has told me not to divulge any information on the original owners. I cannot reach the other 3 directors because the other director because he's outside the country.
So you will not open her brain and force out the
Nope.
information. So
Nope.
sorry.
Yeah. She says, no. I've talked to the one with the director. He told me I don't give those information. The other director is out of the country.
Makes perfect sense. She is not lying. She's just saying she cannot.
I won't tell you.
I'm not going to tell you. Not that I don't know. I am not going to tell you. Fair
At the end
enough.
of the day, they left her to go home. Yeah.
Well,
Probe finished, she went to her house. Done.
this matter isn't finished.
Of course, it's not finished, but at the end of the day, you're not going to arrest her for not giving you the info or disclosing this information.
In which country?
Can I just say,
So-
this is one of those hearings again. Another one of those KEMSA hearings. I have absolutely, I won't say absolutely. I have little faith in these hearings unearthing the actual beneficiaries
If they don't already
of
know.
the KEMSA.
Eric.
Putting it somewhere on a list and saying these are the actual beneficiaries. No, what we're going to have is Dr. Jonah Manjari and the others who've been suspended they're the ones who are going to be held culpable. The actual beneficiaries, the ones who took the billions, we'll never know them.
No.
But
We
Eric,
won't know them, not now, not
No.
here.
The question I want to ask is, what if they were to be charged? What are they going to be charged with?
Who?
Those who benefited from
Those who benefited.
Yes.
There can be things that can be found. You see, you don't have to charge them. The thing is, just say investigate them. Investigate their business dealings. What did you present? What did you do? Number 2, blacklist.
You know, you're blacklisting a 2-month-old company.
Yeah.
It
And
didn't
that's
take-
why we're saying don't just blacklist the company, blacklist the actual beneficiaries.
and you see this happening.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing this happening. I'm not seeing that happening in this. In all these things, it's Kid Abdul Somad sitting every day, summoning people. We saw this. We're seeing the same health committee in the Senate sitting, summoning people. Sabina Shage's health committee in the National Assembly sat, summoned people, did a report. The actual names of the people who were making calls to Dr. Jonah Manjari and saying, if you don't give that contract to that person, utakipata. Those ones, we wouldn't know them. The actual people who got the billions, we will not know them. Those billions are not with Dr. Manjari. They're elsewhere. 12 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatleaf and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatleaf and True Black and the Standard Group.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right, it's 11 to 7. Quickly. So Tuesday is the Msambweni by-election date. Okay.
It is.
Yeah, and we were all there yesterday. Omar Boga of ODM with Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi yesterday campaigning in Kwale, and then we also know the independent candidate. And the president took a photo with the ODM candidate. So the president is supporting the ODM candidate.
We heard that Raila Odinga said that the Msambweni election is actually going to be an indicator of how the country has taken the BBI.
Oh, so it's a BBI vote, huh?
Yes.
Okay. That would be interesting. Let's start with the voter turnout.
And then you see.
The voter turnout will be an indicator of the BBI support or no support. If indeed it's going to be a litmus test.
Yeah, he said it's Msambweni is
yeah.
a BBI litmus test.
Sour.
Those were his words exactly.
By the time politicians make such statements, they know exactly what they're saying. And they know why they've said it so. There are times when they hope
If
it
you
is so.
vote for that other guy, you're against BBI.
Speaking
But
of
please go ahead.
Speaking of bridges, an actual bridge, like a real bridge, right? So there's the floating bridge, which was inspected by President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday at the 1.2 kilometer Libertoni pedestrian floating bridge in Mombasa County. He launched also the construction of a new 4.5 billion shillings Kibarani fixed crossing to be ready after a year. He was accompanied by Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia and Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho. And so this floating bridge, basically you walk from one end to the other, right? And it's suspended above the water. So it's a good thing. Just in terms of construction and infrastructure, what the president is currently doing. So it's to change the face of Mombasa and allow people to get along while enjoying the view and crossing over from one side to the next.
Okay. This is the Libertoni Bridge, eh?
Yes.
All right. I think this is the one you're saying, City. So the president walked across it and he said, okay, having walked across this, we have talked with the contractor and we've given them until the 1st of January so that they can make sure that all the safety measures are in place. You know what I read here is that the president walked and he felt,
Here
are you sure this thing
can take more than just us.
take 2 more weeks?
Remember, in the course of this week and the previous week, there were reports that it was more or less 90%.
Yeah.
Completed.
Okay. This bridge is an example of a project that has started with the intention of seeing it to a completion, because you see, from the day it was started, there's progression. In fact, the only other development that I consider is the COVID hospital. I'm calling it the COVID hospital that was built at Nairobi Hospital. My friend, they gave a time frame, and within that time frame, done, dusted, finished, completed.
So it's possible.
What I'd like to see, though, is whether commuters, people who travel on foot, are still going to be using the Likoni ferry, because the idea is to decongest
The ferry.
The ferry.
Yes. This I'd like to see.
Let's see the number of people. How far is Libertoni from the ferry channel?
It's not far. It is maybe 2 kilometers.
About 2 kilometers. So it's possible that
This is an option.
people who actually take a lot of time walking towards the ferry then would find maybe this one would be shorter.
Actually, it is more public transportation now, because Likoni ferry, there is even a berth for buses and matatus, okay? It's simply creating a place where matatus can load. Of course, Libertoni for the longest time, well, it's a residential area, yes, but the ships or the boats that dock in Libertoni were normally fishing vessels. And in that area also are the docks where ships are repaired. So it is not as though it is an area that is inactive. It is active. So it's just a change. It is not really that far when you think about it.
Okay. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So the story that we'll be discussing from 4:30, 4 victims of sexual and gender-based violence during the 2008 election violence have been awarded 16 million shillings. It was a sick victory for the 4 women after waiting 13 years to get justice for the humiliation that they faced at the hands of uniformed police officers who raped and assaulted them during the chaos that followed the disputed election. Justice Weldon Curry ruled that the government failed citizens by not taking measures to protect them during the violence that rocked the country and which resulted in violation of the victims' rights, injuries to their bodies, and psychological torture. We will be speaking with Tina Lai and one of the victims later this morning on this particular one. Landmark ruling, isn't it? It's a big one. It's a big one.
Okay. So
the BBI journey, let me just do this one. The BBI journey. Signatures have been taken to the IEBC by the BBI Secretariat for verification. Okay? Now, the referendum bill and signatures in its support were yesterday handed over to the Electoral Commission boss, who gave indications that it will not be all smooth sailing. IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati gave subtle terms for faster clearance of the initiative, which incidentally is running out of time. He asked for money for verification of the signatures, recognition of the fact that staff will be working during COVID-19 period, and attached the start of exercise to National Treasury's responsiveness. He says, so you want us to verify this? Give us the money.
yeah, without the money, we can't verify.
Well, if we don't have money, then this exercise is just going to be very, very, very slow. Yeah.
Yep. There's no two ways about it in this case. That's it.
Maybe one of you understands what this verification process takes and why it is.
So now all those signatures that they got, they must actually verify
4.5
that they're
million.
all registered voters.
So they're
in
going.
the
So
country.
they will need to employ more people.
Yes, no, because you have to verify against your register that you have that these signatures that you've gotten are all registered
So essentially,
voters.
you're saying in the same way that when we have an election, we employ more people, train them. So even for verification, we will need to employ more people, train them, in order so that they can verify signatures.
We'll have staff. Basically, you have staff working during this COVID-19 time, so they're working in the office. So you've got to think of where they will be working from. Okay. Number 2, you have to think about their working hours. So because of the time limitations, you may need to extend their working hours. That means you need to give them some allowance because of working late. So all those things you have to factor in. And then when they're working like that, you may want to think about feeding them. You may want to think about, giving them chai na mandas, chai ya saa 4, chai ya saa 10, mandas saa 4, sausage saa 10. All these things you have to factor
Cost
in.
some money, man.
It's money.
Speaking of money, so remember how we said that, or rather we didn't say, the court has said that now 250,000 shillings from each MP. It also would appear that on the other side, civil servants will face an allowances squeeze, and this is not good news for them. New proposals seek to reduce the hefty allowances that civil servants get and narrow salary differences for workers in the same job groups. The SRC now wants allowances not to constitute more than 40% of the national gross pay, of the monthly gross pay. The guidelines were last reviewed in 2015. In some cases, the figure doubles a worker's monthly pay. According to the document, the SRC will continue to review and consolidate remuneration and facilitative allowances to make the proportion of basic pay to gross salary to be no less than 60%. So there's something called hidden allowances. They create inequity and unfavorable pay. So we are basically saying the target is to have 60% of your pay in basic salary and the rest in allowances, according to SRC Chair Lynn Mengich.
Okay.
So all those extra things.
Those extras actually are, and remember that's what.
Why are we having this debate about these extras now? And with COVID, this is something that should have been trimmed. Which means it wasn't trimmed.
It wasn't trimmed. It's now.
So nothing really changed.
No.
And even now, we're just having a conversation. It's not like it's going to happen next week.
We're still chatting, by the way.
It's not like it's going to happen next week.
They all say until you pay, we're just chatting. We're having a conversation.
Meanwhile, as we go to the top of the hour, remember Dr. Evans Kidero, the former governor of Nairobi?
Oh, yeah.
2022, he hopes to be the governor of Homa Bay County.
Oh, get out of here. Okay.
Yeah. So, Woman Rep Gladys Wanga yesterday said the party would use BBI's rally to call the House to order. Our meeting is, first of all, to root for the Constitutional Amendment Bill in Homa Bay together with all the elected leaders. Second, we want to bring our House as Homa Bay County ODM delegates to order. And we have seen a number of potential aspirants for various positions claiming to be ODM members, yet they are being used by political enemies. Kidero has confirmed that he might vie for the seat. It is something I'm considering very seriously.
Does he still have cases in court?
Yeah, none of them bars him from vying.
Okay, all right. I'm just asking.
He hasn't been convicted by
many people have cases in court. People who are really high up in government, high up in the state. Having a case in court is just
no
that
biggie.
You have a case in court.
That's it. It's like taking a walk down the street. Okay.
You see, this habit that we Kenyans have of declaring someone guilty simply because they have a case in court. That's what the court is supposed to determine. Yes, and here we are trying to assume and do the court.
I just asked the question. No, I don't know where you're going, City. I just asked, does he have case?
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so it has really built up on Mombasa Road, trying to get into the city centre. Slow. Southern Bypass is still a problem there because of that trailer or that truck, guys. So if you're headed in that direction, Southern Bypass, the hindsight is blocking the entire left side of the road. So please approach with caution, Tafadhali. Okay, getting into the city centre then from Uhuru Highway. It's looking kind of slow this morning. Shouldn't be too crazy though. So traffic all around is behaving rather well today. We don't have too much of an issue. Let's see what it looks like in about half an hour. The bypasses though can be used, except there's the Southern Bypass. Be very careful there. Eastern Bypass looking good. Red Hill Bypass coming out of Westlands also looking pretty good. Thika Road getting into the CBD via the Pangani Underpass also flowing smoothly, and the service lanes behaving rather beautifully this morning. Let's hope it remains this pleasant Friday. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start
2
your
minutes
day.
after 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room this morning. This is the 11th day of December 2020. Beautiful Friday in Nairobi. We are now live on KTN Home as well for the next 2 hours. We are live on Spice FM, and we are live streaming the show on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. As we begin the hour, C.T. Muga always gives us the day's proverb.
Right. God created lands and lakes and moors for man to live, but the desert so that he can find his soul.
God created
Lands and lakes and moors for man to live. Just get on with your day-to-day business. However, there's the desert. The purpose of that desert is for you to find your soul.
You said this is a Tuareg proverb.
It is attributed to the Tuareg.
Okay.
And we know where they live, or they tend to live. They tend to inhabit.
So it was a way just for them, maybe the Wazayas, to explain to the kids, why is there a desert?
Yes, there is, but also there are communities that we know of that what those in the West like referring to as native communities. They like going for what you call a walkabout.
Sounds very Australian.
It sounds very Australian. Yes, but the walkabout is not just taking a stroll. It's going to be in touch with nature. Now, it may not seem so, but the deserts are a very lively part of nature. And as I said, no distractions there.
Nope.
Really?
None.
Let's talk about business in the country. Let's talk about indigenous businesses that support Kenya's economy from various fronts. One of them is Premier Food Industries Limited. You know, when you say that, some people will be like, Premier Food Industries, I've heard the name Premier League.
Actually, when you say Premier, you
Premier,
immediately...
Premier.
I'm about to ask, what do they brew beer?
Yeah, Premier. Premier Foods. Right? When I say Peptang, though,
Then I know what you're talking about.
yeah. So there's Peptang. Peptang, the house of Peptang is called Premier Foods Industries Limited. This company, if you were to guess how old it is and how long it has been in operation in this country, how old do you think it is?
It's old. I think it may even be older than me because as a child, I encountered Peptang. Yes.
The tomato sauce.
Yes. Now, I know that the issue here is, was I once a child? Yes.
That was
yes,
my next question. I was going to say,
I was a child
explain
once.
to us this childhood experience of yours.
And you have a sharp memory.
I know.
Oddly enough, as you get older, one of the things that are clear, the things of your youth are much, much clearer than these confusing things that happened in
That are
between.
happening now.
Yes, these ones. But childhood, clarity. Yes.
So you remember Peptang?
I remember Peptang
sauce
very well.
when you were young.
Yes.
So that is
Tomato
a
sauce.
couple of decades ago, right?
Actually,
friend, you're
they are-
older than Kenya.
they
I
are-
know that.
Yes, I am older than Kenya, the country. Not the landmass, just the country. Yes, it existed.
The Independent Republic of Kenya. So let's speak to the CEO of Premier Foods Industries Limited, the house of Peptang. He joins us on the line. His name is Joseph Choge. Joseph, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. It's good to have you on the show.
My pleasure.
Karibu sana. This is called the Situation Room.
Asante.
So let's just start with you answering that question. Is this company older than CT?
Maybe age of
City.
his father.
Well. Okay. How old is Peptang? Is this company's Premier Food Industries?
To be precise, Peptang is now 85 years old.
It's definitely older than I know Eric was hoping that... Eric, sorry, your hopes have been dashed. It is definitely older than me.
Yeah.
85 years old.
Yeah, incorporated in 1935.
And all these years, you've just been doing tomato sauce and others.
I'm telling you, tomato sauce, juices, jams, you name it.
Let me ask the question. The name Peptang.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I think, okay, so it's definitely older than me by far, because I'm just, I'm under 40. Peptang, I think it was just coined from, if you look at pep and tang in the dictionary, it's just about a nice thing, you know? So I can't point out the dictionary meaning at the moment, but it's coined from a nice thing. I think somebody just played with words and just came up with Peptang. In fact, when I heard about Peptang before, I thought it was Chinese.
But it makes sense to pep you up. And
pep you up, you know, pep up your
tangy.
day.
Yes.
So tang is about taste.
Well, tangy has something to liven up your taste buds.
Correct.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
Apart from Peptang, the tomato sauce, what other pep do you have? Or tang?
So we produce a myriad of products. We do, so first, Peptang is our flagship brand, under which we do the sauces, and myriads of sauces, from tomato sauce, ketchup, chili, and all that. And then we also have, juices. For example, the Orchid Valley juice, taking the market by storm. Very nice natural juice. We also have the jams, the Peptang jam. We have Peptang honey. We have baked beans for your morning breakfast. I'm sure somebody's salivating at the moment as I go on. We have the diluted drink juices, like the squashes, that I'm sure you grew up with, especially going to school with. Yeah. There are other. We have even githeri, canned githeri, and many other stuff in our portfolio.
No, do that canned githeri bit again. Canned githeri.
Yes. Yes, actually, if you go to the
githeri.
supermarkets and not just breeze past the shelves, you will likely see it. Yes, there is canned githeri. He's right.
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't mention our baby in the latest baby, our peanut butter. If you've not tried, you don't know what you're missing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems that there's a lot of diversification over the last few years. How have you been able to keep this running? If you started out with tomato sauces and now we're talking about a full meal in a can, how have you been able to maintain and even thrive as a business over the last 85 years?
So we center ourselves on quality. We are a home of quality. So that's what has propelled our name since inception. So anything we do, we put quality at the center of what we do. And over the years, we've defined ourselves as a food company. We want to be in your table from breakfast to dinner. As such, we try to increase our portfolio every other day to be able to, as we meet the consumer needs. We partner with farmers from different parts of the world. We have the people who supply us mangoes from Hola, Ukambani. We have Kenyans who supply us honey from Baringo, Meru, across the country. Tomatoes from Loitoktok, different small-scale farmers all over. So that partnership is what has managed to sustain us throughout this year. And we continue to solidify our partnership with our partners.
Right. I think it's very interesting that you talk about partnership with local farmers, because I look at that as, a double-edged sword in terms of how you're able to do business. If the company is thriving, but at the same time, you're able to then support local farmers. So are you at a place whereby you say, look, if you have a good product, or even asking you, go ahead and farm your product and we'll be able to mop it up? Is that what farmers can do? Can farmers actually approach you and say, look, I have this product, I've been farming it for some time. Would you then be able to pick it up so that I have a sustainable source of income? And then I'm also encouraged to contribute to this as well.
Yeah, actually, we take pride in supporting the local farmer because, any day we can wake up and decide to go and farm huge tracts of land for ourselves. But if it can be able to sustain a farmer somewhere who can be able to take the kids to school or sustain their livelihood, we take much pride in that. And as such, any farmer who does, say, tomatoes or any inputs that come to us, we are more than happy to partner with them anytime. We mop up, especially during glut season. There's a time when tomatoes are just flooded in the market and it goes to waste. And sometimes it pains me that probably we need to even increase our capacity so that we process the tomato pulp and actually store so that farmers don't go at a loss. So yeah, any small-scale farmer who can do any inputs within our realm would be happy to partner with them.
Right.
Let me ask the question. Since this is a business that is ongoing, there will be, and the products you use are seasonal, at least semi-seasonal. With modern technology, they don't have to be. Do you have your own farms and your own outlets where you actually, so that you guarantee that irrespective, despite and whatever happens, you are able to actually have the supplies you need?
Actually, you'd be surprised because our farmers sort of sustain us year in, year out. What we've done now is we have a pilot farm about over 300 acres where we are trying to see how we can improve the yield of that particular farmer. So we brought in new varieties, about 9 varieties of tomatoes that are almost double the yield of the Kenyan local farmer. So we've done the first pilot. We've harvested the other day. We've found that at least 2 varieties have almost double the yield. And we want to do a second pilot. And as soon as we can confirm that the yields are actually more than double what the Kenyan farmer is doing at the moment, then we can be able to supply them with seeds to be able to ensure that sustainability of the supply chain for us.
So how do you work with the farmers? I mean, what kind of contract? Do you get into contracts with groups of farmers, or is it individual farmers? Or do you just go to the market? Let's say the farmers in Loitoktok have produced their tomatoes. Do you just go to the market and buy, or do you have contracts with farmers in Loitoktok for tomatoes?
Okay. So at the moment, we've not had any particular contract with the farmers, but we have engagement with our extension officers on the ground, and that relationship has been built so that they know their destinations. Once they harvest their produce, we are standby to take their product. And in that case, they can be able to, sell to us at the market value, a price that we can actually be able to benefit them. As we go by, when our seed, comes to age, when we can actually say we've got a very new variety of seed that we can actually sustain them and increase their yield, then we can go into some sort of contract where, sustainably they are able to know that when the produce is ripe, you just bring to us, and we'll always supply them seeds, the fertilizers necessary, and all the inputs that they need.
But then I'm wondering, why is it that you would consider not going into contracts where somebody would go producing knowing that I have a ready market for my produce and this is the price at which I'm going to sell? For example, if I look at the brewers, they have contracts with their farmers for barley, for sorghum, and for everything else. Why don't you have the same? I'm thinking about, because I know a couple of farmers, for example, in Loitoktok, who one season they have planted, they have invested heavily, but because of one reason or the other, because of a glut in the market, because of flooding in their farms, they go at a loss. If you had a contract with them and you ensure that you are even offering proper extension services, wouldn't that really benefit the farmer?
It would actually, and that is at the heart of what we are trying to do with the pilot program, because we wanted to be in a position to control the quality of the output that comes from the farmer. Okay, at the moment, if we compare the output per acre, when a farm somewhere in Brazil or China is doing 100 tons, Kenya is only doing 20 tons. You see, that's 5 times lower yield than what is expected, and that makes us uncompetitive in the market. Yeah. So what we are trying to do is, being the biggest tomato consumer in the country, single tomato consumer in the country, biggest tomato consumer in the country, we're trying to see how is it that we can be able to, uplift this farmer by improving their yield, and that way we control the entire supply chain from end to end. It's something that is overdue, I must agree. But as far as mangoes are concerned, for example, mangoes, we actually do contract farming with the farmers somewhere in the coast and Ukambani. We give them seedlings, and we try to grow the orchard. You'll be surprised that we don't have enough mangoes in Kenya. It boggles my mind.
No, it's not
Same thing for passion fruit. It is the passion fruit called the yellow passion. This one, I would urge any farmer who can be able to go into it, though it's a low altitude kind of produce. If there's a farmer who can be able to go in and do probably large scale or this kind of farming, we'll provide the seed and they provide to us the fruit. We can't even meet half the demand of this particular fruit.
Kindly explain to me, how does contract farming work?
So contract farming is a process where I get a seed. Okay, so I get into an engagement with a farmer. We agree that I'm going to probably provide seeds, farm inputs, if there are any fertilizers that are required and everything. And out of that, the farmer tends to the crop until it's mature. And once it's ready for harvesting, I will come and be able to take the produce. Or if we agree that the produce is landed to the factory, they bring to the factory. And even before, the reason we are doing the pilot we are doing is be able to know what kind of yields am I able to get per a quarter of an acre, for example, or an eighth of an acre, for example. So I know this is the yield I expect from this, and this is the assured return that this particular farmer can be able to get from us. That way, it's a win-win symbiotic relationship between the two entities.
Okay, you said something that was interesting, Joseph, is that you don't even have enough. For example, you say enough mangoes in Kenya. A couple of weeks ago, we maybe some months ago now, we heard of a business that has been able to blossom by virtue of the fact that she takes mango waste that has been thrown away, and she's turning this into dried fruit and is exporting it. So this is waste. So now if you're on this point saying that there's not enough in the country, she's been able to thrive or build this business as a result of what has been thrown away. So isn't there something missing here? If we're saying that this mango has been thrown away, on the other side, there's a company that is saying we don't even have enough with which to produce, and we're asking that more and more farmers join. So it seems that there's some kind of there's a mismatch then between supply and demand and the market.
Yeah. So what happens is there are glut seasons in the market. Right now we're in the process of doing. Mangoes are ripe in the market at the moment as we speak. Now, I'll tell you, there's overcapacity of processing mangoes in Kenya. There are several factories that are processing. And the mangoes that we get, the organized groups that are able to bring the mangoes to the factories cannot be able to sufficiently sustain our running capacity. And the problem is we have idle time. We probably process mangoes only probably half the year, 6 months in a year. There are only 2 seasons in a year. So are we able to come, so that the problem now is that everyone comes with mangoes at the same time. That's when we have, we have that particular glut, and probably some will rot. And it's good that somebody is actually going the dried mango way. I think I know even someone in Thika who is doing a fantastic job in ensuring that, able to mop up the excess supply within a certain point in time.
Let me ask this question. I ask as a layperson, at what point is a fruit ripe and at what point is it rotting? And at what point is it completely beyond any useful purpose?
Yeah. So there's when the fruit is ripe, it's I'll use a little bit of kawaida fruit that you take, Eric, and you munch, it's so juicy and all. That's the perfect time that, we can maximize on the juice. Now, it can ripen a bit more, which can still be used for juicing. But then, beyond that, it will have infestation by some insects. The doodles will just come into the fruit and it will just be bad. So I think the person you mentioned who is actually able to dry is at least gone on the overripe one. Okay, which we may not be able to use because now probably the acidity levels become bad. Okay, for our consumption, because there's something we look at as well. We look at the juiciness and the sweetness of this particular fruit to be able to deliver a very good juice to you.
I'm thinking about food security. When you talk about such produce, for example, the mangoes or even the tomatoes, There's great concern about residue, and this is how farmers will go and spray chemicals to their fruit just a few days before harvest, so that it's still looking fresh and red and looking very good as it goes to the market. What do you do as a company when you're purchasing this to ensure that what you purchase meets the residue requirements, and therefore what goes into the tomato sauce does not have chemicals?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question, and we are very keen on that. So we have a very, very intense cleaning up process to ensure that no chemical residues are moved from the fruit into the pulping or sauce or juice that we actually use. And we have laboratories within the organization that measure. Once the pulp is out, you can't take it to the next level before measuring if there's any chemical level within the fruit. So the cleanup process is the one that assists us to ensure that we don't take any chemical residues from spraying. And what we advise farmers as much as possible is to use more organic kind of herbicide, as opposed to any that have chemicals that could eventually lead to diseases. So we are very, very keen to ensure that doesn't happen.
So what do you do to that to ensure that the farmers understand the importance of not having the chemical residues?
Yes, it's the training. It's the training. If you go to the ground right now, say you go to Shimba Hills at the moment, you go to Loitoktok, you'll find our extension farmers on the ground. And the particular farms that we actually take the crops from, they've had training throughout the year. They've had constant engagement with our teams, just to ensure that the quality of our fruit is protected. Because we just don't take any type of fruit to come to the factory. We have to be very careful on the quality of the fruit that comes. Somebody can just think, tomorrow I just show up at Peptang in the morning, and I just bring any kind of tomato and we'll take. No, it has to have undergone a certain process in terms of growing, even transportation, bringing it to the factory. We don't want it exposed, so there's a way we carry them so that they are not broken and infested with any microorganisms before they get to the factory. And even once they get to the factory, there's a whole process of cleanup, testing, just before we actually process it into a pulp, a sauce, or a juice.
Joseph, I must say that everything that you've said just seems to be working so beautifully, right? From farm to packaging and even the advice. What are the challenges that you faced in being able to sustain this kind of business in Kenya?
Yeah, in fact, biggest challenge is the cost of input that goes into our farmers. If the necessary government bodies would support the farmers so that they're able to subsidize, their production, would be able to be competitive. Today, a juice or a tomato sauce can come from Egypt and becomes cheaper than what is locally produced here. Why? Because there they have subsidies, crops, husbandry for the crops and all these things are done there's a huge government support, so that whatever produce they bring, it's actually much cheaper, and I can be able to take the same and pass it on to the consumer. But at the moment, the kind of inputs they use is a bit, expensive. Labor is a bit expensive, and as such, by the time the inputs come to us, it's already at a higher price compared to the market, almost double what I would probably get from an Egypt or another country. So that's been our biggest challenge. From a supply chain perspective, it's the question of how do we continue to have farmers come in cooperatives, so that our cost of going to amalgamate the produce and bring them together. So if they have cooperatives or something like that brings the produce together, so that when we go to collection, it's not an expensive process of bringing the produce to the factory.
We've been talking to Joseph Choge. He is the CEO of Premier Food Industries Limited. Premier Food Industries is a house of Peptang. Now, you've seen Peptang juice, not Peptang, the tomato sauce. You've seen a lot of Peptang product. This company is 85 years old, has been operating in this country for that long. Joseph, you told us that not just the what we know. There's juices, there's a tomato juice. I mean, there's a tomato sauce rather. There's juice, there's peanut butter, there's jam. What else do you have?
Okay, so I think so. I probably have not mentioned the tomato paste. There's the mixed vegetables. There's some beans that we have. And of course, now the one thing that probably people don't know is that we actually, when we take the mangoes, when we crush them, we get a pulp that we use for our juicing. Okay, even passion. But we are not necessarily the full consumer of what we crush. We also sell to other juice makers within the country and even in the East Africa region. So the pulp that we get from this now, that makes your Orchid Valley juice.
Okay.
That is now, almost our new flagship, almost overtaking our sources. Yeah?
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, Joseph. And as you leave, we had talked with you earlier, and you had said you're coming with goodies. And these goodies are going out to our audience this morning. 10 hampers coming from Premier Food Industries this morning. Let me just ask the two questions that would get our winners this morning. Between now and the end of the show, going onto our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook and on Twitter. List 3 variants of the Peptang peanut butter. List 3 variants of Peptang peanut butter. Is that a good question, Joseph?
Yep, perfect.
All right, let's also add another one. List any 3 variants of Peptang sugar-free jam. That's the one? That's a good question as well.
Yep.
So list any 3 variants of Peptang sugar-free jam and any 3 variants of Peptang peanut butter.
Actually, you rephrase it. The variants of Peptang jam. Just the variants of Peptang jam.
Peptang jam, okay.
Yeah.
List any 3 variants.
Because sugar-free is one of them. You've just given them away.
Oh,
just give it away.
okay.
Not a problem.
Sawa, that is one. So list any other 2 variants of Peptang jam. Asante sana, Joseph, and we'll have the winners, and we'll get the winners then to speak to you later on.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph.
For having us here.
Right.
Keep it Peptang.
Asante sana.
Thank you. You have a good morning.
7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for a break. We'll be back shortly.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, twende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
This week on Cars with Big Boy Trev, it's all about Munich's best-selling sports saloon, the BMW 3 Series. We take you through its elegant design language, premium interiors, and of course, experience the thrill behind the wheel of the ultimate driving machine. Question is, will you pick it over the Mercedes C-Class or the Audi A4? Catch this and much, much more only on Cars with Big Boy Trev this Sunday at 6:30 p.m. only on KTN Home.
All right, partly sunny this morning in Nairobi at 17 degrees. It'll go to highs of 26 today. 26 will also be the high in Nakuru, currently mostly clear at 14. 10 and mostly clear in Nyeri at 24. That'll be the high, with a high chance of rain going into the weekend. It's a bit chilly in Eldoret this morning at 9. It'll go to highs of 23 today, however, and a chance of rain as well. Mostly clear in Kisumu at 19. Highs of 27 and coming back down to lows of 19, and will rain this weekend. Clear conditions in Kakamega at 19, going to highs of 27 and lows of 14. It's raining in Mombasa at 25. We'll go to highs of 31. 27 will be the high in Malindi, currently at 19. We'll come down to lows of 16. Clear skies, however. It's also clear in Kampala this morning at 20. The highs will be 25 and lows of 18. It's raining in Dar es Salaam at 26. At a warm day, highs will be 32. 27 will be the high in Johannesburg today. It's sunny at 19 at the moment. And in Lagos, it has started raining. Clear skies have disappeared. Take us temperatures of 32 today and lows of 25. And finally, for now, in Kinshasa, it's 26 degrees. Light rain, highs of 32 and lows of 23.
Are you ready? Okay. Spice FM. Traffic.
Looking pretty good around the city, guys. It doesn't seem to be causing too much drama, except for the southern bypass, where traffic is slowing down considerably. Trying to take that vehicle out of the way so that it doesn't cause a problem. So reducing traffic on that area. Coming out of Thika Road and most of the parts of the city this morning, it looks pretty good. We don't see too much drama, so it's fantastic. Let us know if you do get stuck anywhere or if you find out an incident that we should know about. Let us know and we'll spread the word. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
7 minutes to 8 o'clock. We are back. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and spicefm.co.ke. This and every morning in the room, you have Eric Latif, Nduoko, and CT Muga. Let's talk about justice.
All right. So a couple of weeks ago, there was all this talk about the renewal of investigations into the post-election violence that took place in 2007, 2008. And there was all this hullabaloo and everybody got, essentially their knickers in a twist about what does it actually mean? Are we going to go into an investigation? Are the people's names going to be called out? Really, what will it be? That notwithstanding, even within the court system, there were still cases that were then before judges of the court and waiting on those decisions to be made. There were issues about neglect or failure to investigate, about cases which many pointed towards gender-based violence and rape and other kinds of sexual assault that occurred during this time of the post-election in Kenya. Now, there's still some cases before, and at that time when we started having this conversation, transitional justice expert Tina Lai told us that, we're waiting for December. If we get a decision on some kind of justice for these individuals who had brought their cases before court, it will be a good indication that even in the future, justice will then be served for those who've had to suffer because of this. That day came yesterday when the High Court made a landmark ruling and found the government of Kenya responsible for the failure to investigate and prosecute 2007 to 2008 post-election sexual violence in Kenya. Survivor petitioners in PE post-election trial 122 then were awarded 4 million shillings for violation of constitutional rights and some others. So there's some more details to this. But it's interesting that not less than a month that we spoke about this, then we see this ruling having been made today.
The thing about rape that is perhaps sometimes not highlighted, and what you've read highlights it, it's violence. But it's violence that is perpetrated through sex. And there are very few things that can be as heinous as that to an individual, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your age, because it violates you in ways that nothing else can. And remember, crimes in this country that are committed violently, I believe they changed that particular law. I think it carried a death sentence at some point. But we no longer kill people, do we? No. That is how seriously it was taken. When someone robs you, we talk about robbery with violence, and we talk about people armed to the teeth and they rob you. Actually, rape is the same. You are robbing someone of something very fundamental to them. It's called dignity. It's not. You don't walk around with spare dignity.
No. Reserves.
Yes, and they are, exactly. And there aren't reserves where you can sort of like make an application and say, the one I had was depleted. I'm requesting for a new supply. So whenever a case like this is brought to the fore, in my mind, it is a clear sign that we are moving forward. That at least you're beginning, this is not a flicker of light. This is a full glare of light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I'm certain it will be appealed. However, the ruling has been made.
Yep.
And we can see it. But what I would like is for perpetrators to be pinpointed and for them to feel the full wrath of the law. That is what I would like to see.
That would, according to you, be full and complete justice.
It isn't complete. What would be complete is when we have a system that ensures that people who've suffered, now the perpetrators as well as the victims, let me just repeat this, both of them require psychosocial counseling. What is it that happens to your mind that you feel that you can violate another human being the way you do? Something isn't quite right in your head. Now, the person on whom the violence is meted, that person also requires help. We need something that ensures that both these, because someone who's perpetrated such a crime, what tells you they won't do it again? And what tells you that they will not acquire a sense of impunity? So it's something they feel they more or less have a right to do.
Let's bring in our guests, and this is Tina Alai. She is a human rights and transitional justice advocate, and Elizabeth Otieno. She is a survivor of the post-election violence of 2008. Tina, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
It's good to have you again on the show. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Last time we spoke was still about post-election violence of 2008, was about the pursuit of justice for victims, especially of sexual violence in 2008. Now, here is a landmark ruling, and you mentioned this particular case, but just in passing. So just give us a brief of the highlights of this particular case, what was taken to court, and what the judge then said.
Thank you, Eric. Indeed, as you mentioned, this was a landmark decision made yesterday. Was filed as a constitutional petition by 8 survivors of post-election violence, sexual violence. So sexual violence that was committed during the PV. 6 of these survivors are female, 3 of whom were gang raped by GSU officers. The other 3 were gang raped by civilians. And 2 male survivors who were forcefully circumcised by ethnic militia. The 8 survivors were supported by 4 institutional co-petitioners, including Physicians for Human Rights, International Commission of Jurists Kenya, ICJ Kenya, Coalition on Violence Against Women, and Independent Medical Legal Unit. Now, the survivors brought this case at a time when the state had failed to put in place any kind of measures that would provide them, with justice, that would provide them with reparation. And they filed it in February 2013, just when the Truth Commission was about to complete its work. And particularly, the petitioners were seeking for 4 things. 1, they called on the court to determine that the state was responsible for the violations they had suffered because it failed to put in place measures to prevent the violence in the first place and to protect them from being sexually violated during the violence. Why? Because they indicated that the state had failed to properly train police officers to ensure that these police officers would conduct their policing from a human rights-based approach. Secondly, they called on the state they called on the court to hold the state accountable for failing to provide them with protective measures even after they had gone through the violations, including some of them being sent away from certain health facilities when they reported that they had been violated by police officers. And in the long term, that up until when they were filing the case, and actually up until today, the government had failed to offer them any kind of comprehensive health care or psychological care and psychosocial support. And sadly, they called on the court to hold the government accountable for failing to effectively investigate and prosecute the perpetrators who are responsible for their violations. And here, the petitioners elaborated numerous forms of potential accountability, bearing in mind that in a context such as post-election violence or conflict, while it may be challenging for you to identify your direct perpetrator, there are other layers of responsibility, including those who financed the violence, those who directed the attacks, and those who made those violations possible. So looking at responsibility both for the direct perpetrators as well as those who orchestrated the violence. And finally, they called on the court to hold the state responsible for failing to provide them with effective remedies, including compensation, rehabilitation, reform of laws that can ensure that no other person goes through similar violations, but that their harms are addressed. Just to conclude on what the case is about, whereas there were only 8 survivors who were present in court, the 8 survivors were cognizant of the fact that there were other thousands of survivors out there who would not be in the courtroom, and therefore they prayed for certain broader measures, including requiring that the government put in place a database that would document all victims of PEV-related sexual violence. They called on the court to issue an order that would require the government to set up a special body that would provide reparation to all of these victims and report back to court on how well reparations were being provided. And finally, they called on the court to order the government to set up specialized mechanisms for investigation and prosecution, including mechanisms that would be independent of the police, especially because of the high percentage of sexual violence crimes that had been committed by police officers. So this is what the case was about. Obviously, the verdict that we have received only partially granted these prayers of the petitioners. Nonetheless, it still does stand as a symbolic decision, because for the very first time in more than 13 years since the violence occurred, this category of survivors have received formal recognition for the rights that were violated, and that the state has been called to account because it has been responsible for the violations, has been held to be responsible for failing to investigate and prosecute, and failing to provide protection measures, but only for 4 survivors out of the 8. And the distinction between these 2 categories of survivors is that the court has held, when it comes to petitioner 5, 6, 8, and 9, the state is accountable because in 3 of those cases, it is the state's own security officers who actually violated the survivors. And in the one case, the state is being held accountable because the survivor reported her claim, yet the state did not put in place effective mechanisms to ensure that her perpetrators were properly investigated and prosecuted. The other 4, unfortunately, the judge has determined that the state cannot be held responsible because the survivors were unable to prove that even though they had been violated by civilians, the state ought, or rather owed them, a special duty of care to be protected as individuals. And further to that, he claims that because they did not report then the state's obligation could not have been triggered for the state to put in place effective measures to investigate and prosecute.
Right.
But obviously, we find that there's a missed opportunity in that, which we can discuss a little further.
Sure. Even as we go into the details of this and then what this essentially means moving forward, we also are joined by one of the survivors who, before I go wrong here, has also been affected by this particular ruling. Was she one of the ones in court? And that's Elizabeth Atieno, who joins us this morning. Elizabeth, welcome as well.
Thank you so much.
So, Elizabeth,
for having me on the show.
Asante sana.
Karibu.
What does this mean for you when you hear this and what happened yesterday in terms of this decision? Take us through a little bit of what happened in your case and then what this means as of yesterday.
First of all, let me thank you people for having me on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, yes, it was a landmark rule, but I feel like it's another start of it's a genesis of another journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because the government has never been willing, from the word go, to even acknowledge that indeed something happened during the post-election period, and that women were violated, and women needed support. Women needed treatment. The government has never been willing to even accept that indeed it happened. For instance, my case, when I was sexually violated during the post-election period, I was only 16. I was even not able to report my case because I was gang raped by civilians. And at that time, I couldn't even access medical care because all the roads were blocked. I couldn't access the police station to report because there was no way I would walk out. I would be walking out there to go to report. There was nothing I could have done at that time. I didn't know who to tell. It is later on in 2012 that I came out and I spoke about it for the first time. It has not been an easy journey because out of that, I got a child. And it was not easy having that child, raising that child. There was so much that needed to be done for me to accept that child. It is not easy.
In that time, if I may ask, Elizabeth, did you have access to any psychosocial counseling or any psychological help?
No, I did not.
So
it was only last year that I accessed psychosocial support, and I was supposed to have 7 sessions, and I did 4, and I'm remaining with 3, and the 3 are remaining because it is a session that I must make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I never had that kind of support. And that terribly affected me. I was very bitter by myself, to myself. I was bitter to other people. I started using drugs, to just take that pain away, and it has not been easy. It is not easy at all. But I really thank God for where I am today, because it is not where I used to be, because I've become now an advocate for change, advocate for transitional justice. I am a self-agent, and I'm a HRD. I encourage other women to come out of the closet in case this is what has happened to them, because keeping quiet really kills,
How did you access social support, and where did it come from?
I access social support because of the people that we have at the transitional justice field. From where I work, I happen to be a volunteer of an organization called Grace Agenda.
Yes.
And Grace Agenda is one of the organizations that has been in the forefront to demand from the government justice for the women who were sexually violated during the post-election period. And now Grace Agenda is also a member of the National Victims and Survivors Network. So I got the support from the KTJN members, Tina being one of them, and they paid for my psychosocial support. They came together and paid for my social support, and that is when I accessed it. Yeah.
So, even with this landmark ruling, and this is a question for you, and then hopefully can continue with Tina, is this enough, or is it a stepping stone? Because the things that you've talked about, even if there's a landmark ruling and there's some money then to be paid in terms of compensation, how much more is needed to actually get to a place where you can say, I'm coping with this on a daily basis, and I am encouraged that others in the country also can move forward?
So much is there that needs to be done. First of all, there must be willingness. Secondly, there must be accountability, because justice cannot come without accountability. Justice and accountability goes hand in hand. Because yes, I understand the ruling has been made. How many rulings for compensation have been made in this country, and nothing has ever happened? How many times has the court ruled on cases and the government does not even want to look at that? So for me, let me just say, I don't know if this time the government is going to act for me to feel like there is indeed justice, or if the government, because there are so many survivors outside there, we have recorded statements. Is the government also willing to compensate them, to reparate them? That is the big question here. You know, those were 7 cases that we had yesterday. There are a lot in the working report. There are more than 2,000 cases of sexual violence that were recorded. Is the government willing to compensate, to reparate those women? So for me to feel that indeed justice has been done, and to feel that actually I'm living in a just country, first of all, the government must be accountable. And it must acknowledge that it failed to protect its civilians at that time. There must be accountability.
Indeed.
There must be acknowledgement.
Let's take a break at this point for our audience on KTN Home, 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. This conversation continues with Tina Alai, human rights and transitional justice advocate, and Elizabeth Atieno. She is a sexual violence survivor of the 2008 post-election violence. Elizabeth and others have gotten some sense of, one win in the big war. This is just win of one single battle, with a ruling yesterday by Justice Weldon Korir, which said that the government actually owes some of the survivors of the violence in 2008. We continue this conversation with the two ladies. Just keep it right here on KTN Home, taking a break, and then you come back to us.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. 87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa.
All right, so we continue the conversation. 4 minutes to 8 o'clock. You'd asked the question, and Elizabeth has responded to part 1 of the question. The second part of the question, of course, goes to Tina Alai.
Yes, sorry. Did I miss the question?
So,
I
Tina,
thought Liz had responded. Yeah.
Sure, but here we are looking at, so this has been done. We're talking about 12 years later, right?
Yes.
This judgment has been given.
Yes.
for some, it might seem like a stepping stone to justice. For others, not quite enough, because there's no amount of money you can pay, for example, that would be enough to cover that. But is it a stepping stone? Is it taking us in the right direction? Because we still have thousands, hundreds of other cases that will be before courts, before judges. Is it a stepping stone?
It absolutely is a stepping stone, though. I think when we look at it in the broader context, what this judgment has succeeded in doing is to bring this issue back to the fore. Remember, just as Liz is sharing, this category of survivors have been silenced, they have been ignored, they have been neglected for the past 12 years. And it's not just this particular category of survivors from the post-election violence, but also the reality for victims of GBV every day. So what this judgment is reminding us is that sexual and gender-based violence is just as much a violation as any other form of violation that we may acknowledge as a society. So in the first instance, it's bringing this issue to the fore. It's providing a form of formal recognition for the survivors, and enabling us as a society to reflect, take stock. What are these discriminatory stereotypes and biases that have led us first to permit these violations to happen, second, to condone and just tolerate them, like everything is all right about it, and obviously now challenging impunity for these violations, for sexual and gender-based violence, and also for political violence. But obviously, the journey ahead is still quite long, because we are challenging a system that does not readily appreciate that these violations ought to be repaired in the manner that survivors would like it to be done. So there'll be a long journey to enforce the orders for the four survivors who got the compensation. We know that many other cases have been determined, such as this. The cases of Nyeri House Torture Chamber, for example, it took survivors years on end to eventually get the damages paid off by the Office of the Attorney General. We know that it's not going to be that quick to get the damages, but the damages can never repair what these survivors have encountered. It is merely a recognition that somebody ought to at least acknowledge what happened. Now, what about the other four? Obviously, from where we sit, and of course we will be doing further analysis as we just received the judgment late yesterday afternoon to determine are there grounds for appeal. But obviously the decision has missed an opportunity to ensure that survivors like Liz, who experience numerous barriers to reporting cannot be the yardstick that is used to be able to afford survivors justice.
That's
if at all, there must be measures that are put in place to ensure that the context is conducive for survivors to be able to come forward and receive adequate reparations, as well as proper investigations and accountability against perpetrators.
Time for us to take another break, see what's happening on the roads. It's 8 o'clock. This conversation continues. Good morning.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Okay, so we still have a slowdown of traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, moving quite slowly. Then again, between the SGR and Cabanas, and it's going to take some time then out towards General Motors. But it doesn't look too terrible today. Not too crazy traffic on this Friday. The Southern Bypass, that situation has been cleared now, so it's an option to get into town much quicker, or at least connect with Ngong Road and then on towards Kikuyu from the other side. All right, so getting into the CBD also not so bad either. We're seeing some traffic then on Huru Highway between Nyeri Stadium, getting into the CBD and then out towards Westlands. That slowed down considerably. So Tomboya construction still going on. So as you're coming in from the Globe Cinema overpass, you're going to get stuck there. There's the option of coming in from Thika Road and using Forest Road to get into the CBD. It's much quicker, except for public service vehicles, of course. They can't get that way, but others can. All right, we'll take a look and see how this may have changed in a short while, but it looks like an easy Friday. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the
It's
only
2.5
way to
minutes
start
after
your
8.
day.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Thank you very much for tuning in to Spice FM, to KTN Home, or for those who are watching us online on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. As we begin the hour, C.T. Muga will remind us today's proverb.
Right. God created lands and lakes and moors for man to live, and the desert so that he can find his soul.
God created
lands, lakes, moors for man to live, and the desert, it was also created so that...
Is it so that God can find his soul, or so that man can find his soul?
Man. It's purposed for man. It was created for man, so that man could find his soul. Now, the question one would ask is, why do you want to find your soul?
In the desert, in the searing heat. What you need is to find water, surely. Anyway, let's continue the conversation with Tina Alai and Liz Atieno. Liz is a sexual violence survivor of the 2008 post-election violence. Tina Alai is a human rights and transitional justice advocate. Very big ruling that came out of the High Court yesterday. Justice Weldon Korir ruled that the government failed citizens by not taking measures to protect them during the violence that rocked the country, and which resulted in violation of their human rights, injuries to their bodies, and psychological torture. So this is a case that had been taken to court by 8 sexual violence survivors of the 2008 post-election violence. 3 of them went to court saying they'd been raped by GSU officers. 3 had been raped by civilians. 2 men went, then they said they had been circumcised by militia, and all this is violence of a sexual nature. So the judge gave out a ruling yesterday, and this is what we are discussing today. As we were going into the break, Tina, you were saying, I mean, we have seen how long it's taken for those who had won cases for compensation because of the torture that they had gone through in the Nyayo House torture chambers, how long that has taken, in fact, even for the compensation to start even appearing to be a possibility. So even for this particular one, you're aware and you're alive to the fact that, I mean, this is a long journey. This is just the beginning of one long journey. And we still have a long way to go. At the same time, though, looking at the what the 8 had taken to court, they wanted the state to be held responsible for failing to protect them, to be held accountable for failing to protect the citizens after the violations by offering them, kind of support, including psychosocial support. And Liz Atieno is telling us she did not receive until last year is when she received support. Wanting the state to be held accountable for failing to investigate and prosecute the perpetrators, wanting the state to be held accountable for failing to provide effective remedies, and this includes compensation, rehabilitation, or even reforms in terms of legal reforms to ensure that such things do not happen again in the future. So this is one win, but there's still a long, long journey. What could the next steps look like?
I think the next steps would be for us to, we will be observing fast, obviously, how the National Police Service, Inspector General of Police, the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions, the Office of the Attorney General, even the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, the particular steps that they will take to now activate credible investigations for these 4 cases. Let's begin there for what we have, for these 4 cases. But looking beyond these 4 cases, if you were to situate other survivors out there who are like these 4 survivors, let's take the fact that you were violated by state security officers. What the court is saying, although the justice made it very clear in his judgment that, sorry, I'm not going to give any orders for any survivor who's not before me, because the violations occurred under the repealed constitution, which did not provide an opportunity for public interest litigation. That was his determination. So unfortunately, he did not make orders that can be extended automatically to other survivors out there. Nonetheless, the writing is on the wall. If you were sexually violated by a state security officer, what the judge has said is, you're like this for. The state owed you an obligation because it's their agent that violated you. If you reported your case to the police, like one of these survivors did, and nothing has been done to date, the state violated your rights because of the obligations that they owed you to effectively investigate and prosecute. And therefore, I dare say, I would mirror this judgment and observe or challenge the state mechanism, not to wait for another 10, 20, 100 survivors to have to struggle through 13 long years in a courtroom before they can actually live up to their obligations to properly investigate. And here, when we're talking about investigations, let us not put a high burden, a high evidentiary burden on these survivors. Many of them are not going to be able to identify their perpetrator. Does that mean they do not have justice? No. The law, our law, is clear, including the Penal Code, the International Crimes Act, which in the previous investigations we failed to use. We hope to see that the investigations will be conducted taking into account the context of conflict-related sexual violence and move beyond looking just for the direct perpetrators to, when we're talking about state security, we want to find out who are the commanders of these battalions. Can they be held accountable? When it comes to civilians, we want to find out, were there political actors who facilitated violence by ethnic militia who were forcefully circumcising, for example, the 2 male survivors in this case? Were there political actors who directed their attacks at other civilian communities? Some other players, besides direct perpetrators, must also
Let me ask this question. 13 years, 12 years down the line, the evidence trail at best will be cool, not necessarily cold. What is it within our laws? What do we have within our laws that will enable someone to actually genuinely seek and find justice in a case like this? Because time definitely has eroded that particular process. It's not that it has extinguished it, but it has eroded it.
So the reality, thank you for that question, CP. The reality Kenya is not the only country, or it's not the first country to have grappled with this challenge.
No.
In fact, many other contexts around the world, you barely have any other evidence to work with but the survivor's statement, right?
Yes.
And so when we look at the reports, such as those that were released by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in 2015, saying, sorry, we are unable to prosecute because victims do not have corroborating medical evidence, they're unable to identify their perpetrator. In a conflict context, whereas that would be helpful to help you build a very strong base and hopefully identify a direct perpetrator, in most conflict contexts, you're looking for the next level of responsibility, which shows you what were the patterns of the violations. How widespread were they? Which actors seem to bear a higher responsibility? And so, for example, when you look at the Waki Commission, that's already quite some substantive lead in terms of the types of levels of accountability that you're looking for. But I would hasten to add that criminal accountability is quite challenging to pursue. You would have numerous levels. There are a lot of intricacies before you finally arrive at saying so-and-so would be held responsible for either directly perpetrating or facilitating the commission of that. But also, some survivors know who violated them.
That was the question I was going to ask
Some
Liz
survivors
just now.
know.
But Liz, and
Yes.
where she is, because Liz has told us this morning, and
Yes.
Liz, as you're here as well, you, unfortunately, were gang raped by civilians. As painful as it might be to remember, do you know who raped you?
I don't know, to speak the truth. Because of that, I was gang raped by, it was a gang of men. I up to now, I know their faces, but I've never seen any one of them after that. I've never met any one of them after that.
Had you seen
So
them before?
Pardon?
Had you seen them before? Are they people that you had
No.
ever seen
Before
around
that incident, I have never seen any one of them. I had never met any one of them. I had never seen any one of them. I remember the face of the one who came before me, because surrounded, they had their leader. And it is that face that I remember. But the rest, I don't know.
So now when we're looking at justice, there are two things. Because now it's not a matter of what would you prefer, but what would be most comfortable now. Are we looking at saying compensate me because these individuals, I don't know who they are. I'm not able to give evidence. Just like Tina is saying, evidentiary responsibility then should not now rest on your shoulders, because we're talking about 12 years. You can't remember who these individuals were. Maybe if you saw a face, you could get some recollection. So what are we saying then makes this worth it? Number one, enhancement of security in the country for the civilians of the citizens of Kenya, or the compensation in terms of monetary award. Which makes this make more sense in terms of steps towards the completion of justice? For you right now, is it that you would prefer to feel more protected, or you would want these individuals to be brought to book, or you're all right with the compensation?
First of all, let me just acknowledge that there is no amount of money that can ever repair those 12 years. No amount of money that can ever restore my dignity that was taken away from me. No kind of whatever thing can bring me back to the 12 years of pain and suffering, and maybe the pain ahead of me. There is nothing that can compensate that. Nothing can repair that. It is just the same way I come right now to that station and I tear your dress. I might repair it, but it cannot go back to the way it used to be. It is the same way. I would want to feel more protected and more safe. Because every day I've got a certain fear inside me that maybe one day my daughter might end up being a victim again. Because a lot of things are happening, even during this COVID period. We've had cases of women being raped by the police. I would want to feel safe wherever I am every time. But at the same time, I would want to feel there is accountability, there is justice that has taken place. So all of the questions that you've asked me, they go hand in hand. There is nothing that I can choose there that is more superior than the other. I want to feel safe.
Yep.
I want justice. I would want reparation. Though I have mentioned previously that no form of any reparation can amend the damage that has been done. But at least it can soothe the pain. Yes.
Liz, what
So
do you
for
say?
me,
Sorry, finish. Just go ahead, please.
so for me, I would say I would want to feel safe, and I would want my children to be in a safer environment, feeling protected. I would want justice. I would want accountability from the government. I would want someone to take responsibility of the PEV. And I would want reparation. So there is no... And during the TJRC, when the TJRC report came out, it recommended for sexual violence. It was the second class. The survivors of sexual violence were given second class reparation. Because the people who had lost life, they were first, then became second.
Yeah.
All of those things were recommended by the TJRC, including acknowledgement and including what was that? Including it was acknowledgement and apology from the government, from the president and from the IG.
So, Liz, when you say that you'd like, for example, the government, first of all, to acknowledge and take responsibility for what happened to you and others like you. And I'd assume that this would be like, for example, a public statement from the top leadership of the government coming to say, we acknowledge that this happened and we take responsibility. When you say accountability, that somebody should be held accountable or the government should be held accountable, in what form would you like to see this?
Investigations must be carried out. Because there is no way you want to tell me that Kenyans woke up one morning and went crazy, started butchering each other. People started raping women left, right, and center because Kenyans went mad. Someone was behind the wheel somewhere. And that someone is walking around outside there, scot-free.
Yeah.
Don't you think that we are headed to a more bigger crisis if we don't look for a remedy for this one? Someone must be held accountable because it is indeed that it is someone that indeed organized, and that is why we saw all those violations happening. It is not Kenyans who went crazy. It is someone who organized groups to do this and that out there. So that is why I would want accountability. And accountability will come if only proper investigations are done. Without investigation, then there is nothing. We are headed nowhere.
Yep.
It is only investigation that can bring people to book and justice can be served.
City.
There was this mention of credible investigations. What would you say are the tenets? What are the qualities of a credible investigation? One which passes the muster, and you can say, okay, fine. From these findings, the process that was followed is what ought to be followed. So you would be happy with the findings, irrespective of whether it tends to lean in the direction you'd like it to, but the process that was followed. What are these that must be done?
Number one, there were those hotspots at that time that a lot of violation happened. Is a time now to go back to those hotspots. I understand that there are some wounds that are going to be opened and it is going to be very painful. I know. But for a wound to heal, it must first be operated on, cleaned. And that is when the wound can heal. So there were those hotspots. It's a high time to go back to those hotspots. Start investigating from the people who are there at that time. I think that is the number one procedure. And this investigation must be carried out, if possible, by an independent unit. Because I don't want to believe that the police would go investigate their colleagues, what their colleagues did in some areas. I don't believe that justice will be served there. First of all, the body that will investigate must be very independent, with very good experts in investigation. Go to those hotspots, start asking questions, and start investigating. Number two, there were those areas that the police were deployed. In the case of women, where women were raped by state agents, the question to ask, who was the commander at that time? Because when this JSU comes on the ground, they've got their leaders. Who was where at that time? During that time, we have the DCs, the PCs. Who was in charge at that time? Who was in charge of who was the OCS of a certain station on that area? Those are now the questions that we need to, that body that might be selected needs to do. Those are some of the things that they need to do. And those are the questions that they need to ask.
Actually, I would take it even further and ask who was the PS in charge of the interior at that particular time? Who was the minister in charge of the interior at that particular time?
Now, those are the questions that needs to be asked, and those questions, they've got answers. Because if I go back to books, I will see, like where I was gang raped in Kariobangi. Who was the OCS at that time in Kariobangi? Where was the police when because these militia groups they came in lorries. It is all of a sudden that people came out with pangas. My goodness, I normally don't understand up to now how a group of men would organize themselves with new pangas, with new rungus, and they would be walking around without no question. Because that day when I encountered that group, their weapons were new. I can identify a new weapon, and I can identify a used weapon. They had new weapons. They were walking in public at that time. Nobody was asking them any question. They went around butchering people, raping women. Those are some of the questions. Where was the police? Where was the state at that time?
So, Tina, in terms of investigation now moving forward, because these are questions obviously that would, make up part of this investigation in terms of depth. It would also seem that there would have to be interest on part of the state then to enter into such investigations. Are we seeing the possibility of that taking place, no matter how long it takes?
Well, obviously now the court has given an order that requires the investigating mechanisms to take action. Well, he has not directed them to do so, but he has determined that by failing to do so, they have violated the rights of these four petitioners. The reality in is this. If we don't, we are setting ourselves up for repeat cycles of political violence in this country. Look at 2017. The only difference you have between 2017 and 2007, 10 years apart, is that the violence was not as widespread. But unfortunately, the very same patterns of election-related sexual violence were repeated yet again. Same script. Look at the documentation of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights in a report, Silhouettes of Brutality. In a short period of time, they were able to document at least 201 cases of sexual and gender-based violence committed between August and October 2017, when we were having the initial as well as the fresh presidential election. 50% of these cases were committed by state security officers. 50%. And why? Because the perpetrators keep getting emboldened time and time again. We did nothing in 2007, even though we knew that state security officers were involved. And because of that, in 2017, they felt emboldened again. I pray, tell me, why wouldn't they do it again in 2022? And that is why we're saying, as challenging as it is, we must confront impunity. Obviously, the criminal threshold must be one that will have to be met, and we start from the base. who can be identified,
Yep.
who was a direct perpetrator, and we keep moving up the layers. But let us begin to see some action. So the ball is in the state's court. But as Kenyans, those who support the survivors, and all Kenyans of good conscience, I think it's time for us to put our heads out for the sake of our country and begin to demand that our institutions work for us as required under the Constitution.
Very well said and very well put. Thank you very much, Tina. Tina Alai is a human rights and transitional justice advocate. We've also been speaking with Elizabeth Atieno. Elizabeth is a sexual violence survivor of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. She was gang raped and she has gone through the trauma of that. She got a baby out of that experience. She has taken a long time to start healing. Not yet healed, but at least now she says she's at a point where she's accepted. She's at a point now where she is starting to deal and confront with that. Ladies, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And have a good day. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home and Spice FM and online, 27 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We'll be back shortly.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, twende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
Appreciate how you raised me and all the extra love that you gave me.
What is your best uji for winning and how do you prepare it? Famila Porridge Flour from Unga Group offers the best variants including Famila Strawberry and Famila Banana. Bet you like the taste of that. Link up with me, Monique, on the Spice Drive every weekday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. to learn how you too can prepare the best uji mix for your child and your family.
Dear mama, you are appreciated.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Out in some parts of Nairobi, though. We'll go to highs of 26 today. Sunny conditions also in Nakuru at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's mostly sunny in Nyeri at 18, highs will be 24 and lows of 10. Mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 10, highs of 23. It's also sunny in Kisumu at 18 degrees, going to highs of 27 with a chance of rain into the weekend. It's looking like a dry weekend in Kakamega, mostly sunny at 18 and highs of 27. It's raining in Mombasa at 26 still, highs of 31, likely to last through most of the day. Mostly sunny in Malindi at 18 degrees, highs of 27. And it's also sunny in Kampala at 20, highs of 25 and lows of 18. The low will be 27 in Dar es Salaam today. It's raining, so that things might cool down a bit. It's going to rise up to 32, however. 27 the high in Johannesburg. It's sunny, coming down to lows of 18. Light rain in Lagos at 26. Highs will be 32 and lows of 25. And it has started to rain in Kinshasa. 23 at the moment, going to highs of 32 and lows of 23.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Traffic.
Even this morning, we don't have much traffic on most of the roads today. Well, people are going where they need to go, but it seems that, things are slowing down considerably. So, out of the city looks good. Into the city looks even better. Mombasa Road, slow down in those areas that we expect it to because of the construction and also Friday morning traffic. But nothing that's shouting out at you just yet. Okay, I don't see it getting any worse, but just in case it does, talk to us, please. And let us know where we can warn people to come away from or not to get to at all. Okay, coming off the road looks pretty good as well into the CBD. Remember, you can use Forest Road. Forest Road, I'm telling you, is the star these days. Spice FMKE. That's how you can get to us on Twitter or text 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
28 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online. Each and every morning, you have Siti Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. You've heard from the ladies. You heard from Liz narrating her own experience, what she went through. All those years, it wasn't until last year that she started getting the psychosocial support that she should have gotten a long time ago. As we were going through this, motions as a country and saying, we're dealing with the ghost of the post-election violence, we have set up the constitutional commissions that were called Agenda 4 to look at what happened, how we can support. How did we miss that thing of saying, let us set up an organ or a body that will look at the victims and look at their plight? How did we miss that? We came up with TJRC, came up with NCIC, came up with all of manner of commissions, but this one.
We didn't miss it.
Just ignored it.
It was ignored. When you talk about stigma, and if you want to understand it, this is a perfect situation in which you can actually contextualize it, because you are talking about a subject that people are uncomfortable with, extremely uncomfortable with, on many fronts. People are uncomfortable discussing rape. People are uncomfortable discussing the failure by state organs to do what they're supposed to do. And by the way, there may be very sound reasons why they couldn't, but nonetheless, the discussions around 2007 and 8 are in themselves so stigmatized. People don't want to talk about it. And then we as Kenyans have a habit. We have a culture of burying our heads in the sand. When there's something uncomfortable, we don't want to discuss it, we pretend it doesn't exist or it doesn't matter. There are those who argue it's a human condition. Yes, I'm not talking about humans in general. I'm talking about Kenyans in specific. So if you look at these issues, and you pinpoint them, you tell me, you have a case where someone was raped. This is an individual Kenyan who owes their safety to the state.
Yep.
So the state failed to protect them. That's how they ended up in that position. And from what Elizabeth is telling us, these marauders were walking around in broad daylight with weapons. Broad daylight.
Yep.
More importantly, they're known. It's not that they're not known. They are known. Now, to understand how historical issues can actually have consequences even later years is you look at The Hague and the cases of individuals who belonged to states within the Balkan area who perpetrated crimes a long time ago. It wasn't yesterday. And some of them have even risen to the position of being presidents of their countries and are now being brought to book now. Now, for things that were done. They didn't go out with a machete or a machine gun to mow down people. No, they were not. But they were in charge. Rome statutes are very clear about that. They were decision makers. They are the ones who were responsible. And I think what Elizabeth was saying holds true, because when you look at the official government officials who at that time were in charge, they would know. They would know who was sent there, and more importantly, the security organs would know who the individuals are who are likely to, should we say, get people into groups and cause the problems that came about. It's not that they don't know, they would know. State organs are thorough, and state organs know. They may not talk about it, but they know.
You know, if you listen to that and then juxtapose it with what the president was saying the other day when during the launch of the signature drive, when he appeared to be admonishing the DCI for reawakening this ghost, saying, look, you must think before you act. You must think before you talk. There's what this would mean when you bring these issues back up again. They have an implication.
They do.
So how would you balance those two? Between one, what Tina is saying, we must confront these ghosts for us to be able to deal with them, exercise the ghosts, and move forward. And at the same time, knowing that as you're doing that now with those ghosts, there is a likelihood of you actually just tilting the thing the other way around.
There's a likelihood of thinking it could be tilted, but that depends on how you manage it. Running away from it and not facing it, believe me, is what will tilt it in the direction.
It will just come back.
If you confront it and deal with it and talk about it openly and admit, yes, not that mistakes were made. The government made mistakes. You see, this Kenyan thing of mistakes were made. They made themselves. No, they didn't make themselves.
Do you know the cooling effect that an admittance actually brings with it? Even when you have things that are, up and about, there's fire everywhere. Once you say, okay, look, you know what? There are mistakes that we made. And we are at the place whereby we are willing to do something about it and face this thing head on. You keep running away from it, you're going to run in another direction, you're going to meet it right there again. You keep asking, even now, because it's indicative of now what we're dealing with right now. When we talk about this cohesion that everybody's running after to try and get in the country, what do you think one of the ways you're going to be able to sort that out is? Dealing with the things that dogged you in the past. Dealing with the things that came about as a result of post-election violence 13 years ago. What kind of healing won't you be able to get? We'll give you an example. Look at some of the people today, almost 50 plus years later after the Holocaust that took place. How have they been able to heal? The Nuremberg trials took place. There were people who were arrested. There were people who faced criminal charges. However, you will find that the bulk of people who came and sat down and talked about their experience before going to those, before threatened with being taken to the gas chambers, before all the horror that they went through in Auschwitz, what did they do? They spoke about it and they said, you know what? I've kept it inside for so long. I've not been able to even... We had one woman who told a story and faced her perpetrator face to face and said, look, this is actually what I was feeling. The man said to her, I was wrong. And if I could give my life for what it is that happened, I would. She didn't pursue that matter anymore. And that story, because what happened? You faced it. But if you keep trying to run around this thing, people suffered. You listen to what Liz had to say today. People suffered. People died. She will never be the same again. So how about you just acknowledge that this thing actually happened? And you'll find that some of the problems that you're chasing solutions for, even till now, would be halved. But you can't run away from it.
Did the Gashasha courts do that too for Rwanda?
They made a step.
It went some way.
They made a step. In terms of being complete, it was not complete, because even to date, you'll hear people in Rwanda who will tell you that they're walking on some kind of eggshell peace and security. That all it would take would be one move and somebody then would be able to be plunged back into what happened many years ago.
It's a good question you ask, Eric. But consider the Rwandan situation and the cyclical violence that it had, so that it almost became cultural. And it was the same thing, instigation, one community against the other. And remember just how far back it began.
Yeah.
All right? And the thing about Rwanda that I find strange, bizarre, agencies and people who were able to put a halt to it watched as it took place.
Which is what they're being prosecuted for today.
Yes.
That not because you acted, but because you didn't act.
Actually, that's what the Rome Statute is all about. You are in a position of authority, and the question is, what did you do?
Yeah. You can't say I did nothing, I wasn't involved, because that's just it. Because you did not get involved, and you had all the power to do something about this, but you chose not to. That's the problem. Are you being faced with something different here? Here are people who are coming to you and saying, I was gang raped, right? I have a child as a result of that. I was forcefully circumcised. Look at what happened to me. My life has never changed. They are presenting you with the situation. And here you do have the responsibility to keep your people secure. And you say that, all right, we didn't do something when we should have. And if you don't deal with those ghosts, they will come back to haunt you.
Think of the example of what is dogging the Catholic Church now. All right? Cases of people who are high-ranking priests who have been accused of having violated young boys. Yes, these are adults now. The cases are coming up, but look at the damage it's causing. Look at the damage. Because it isn't now the individual who perpetrated it, it is the institution that this person belongs to that has to bear the brunt of it. These things you never get away with. Not really. You never actually get away with these things. These things have to be confronted. And they have to be confronted and they have to be dealt with. Because when you don't, and by the way, it's not a Kenyan thing. It's the world over. Look at America and what they did with what we refer to as the Native Americans. A systematic, planned extermination program. Where do you find that now? My friend, reality hits you and you're now, the day of reckoning arrives. This saga that we've had before us for the longest time about Black Lives Mattering. It's not that the Black lives started mattering when the issue came up. No. It had always mattered. But a time comes, at every phase in any country's history, a time comes when you're going to have to confront these demons. Whether you like it or not, it will be one genuinely uncomfortable situation. But if you take the step of confronting it yourself and dealing with it, then you lessen that impact. The perpetrators are known. And Elizabeth is right, they are known. We have state agencies that deal with security. The one thing that they know, my friend, they know what happens.
Yeah.
And remember, in those days, we had a special branch of the security forces called Special Branch. Special Branch were information gatherers, and believe me, there's hardly anything they didn't know. Hardly anything they didn't know.
Now they're called NIS.
Yes.
They even have more capacity. They're more resourced. It's the advancement that the current agency has vis-a-vis what that one had.
It's vast. But if you want to understand it, and you want to understand the effectiveness, look at those who have had a background in what we now call NIS, who are in top government positions, and look at what they've been doing. They've managed to do in those agencies that previously had seemed almost impossible to do. Our DPP comes from that background. Our CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission comes from that background. The CEO of the Immigration Department comes from that background. Do you really think that the president was remiss or didn't understand what it meant to appoint these people?
Of course he did.
He did. Look at the appointment of General Badi to run the Nairobi Metropolitan Agency. That wasn't a mistake. He wasn't guessing. Because you talk to people right now in Nairobi, they'll start telling you about the things that they're seeing done in the short time. Now, I know that they may have been started by the governor and they've just been completed, but there is a record of things being done and it's continuous. What am I saying? I am saying that if the state is interested in finding or mentioning the perpetrators, they can. They can.
There's a lot that they can do.
There is. There's a great deal more that they can do.
Okay. So two things that Liz was saying. She'd like admission of responsibility and then accountability. So responsibility, that thing of saying we acknowledge that the government wronged its people. We acknowledge the government failed and we are sorry. Who should that come from?
President.
All right. So in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like, it's one of those easy things. Tomorrow, in one of the president's speech, we say, as we look back where we've come from as a country, this happened in 2008. We acknowledge, we are sorry.
No, you can't approach it that way.
How would you do it?
This one, you have to make it a specific and special issue that you're discussing.
It can't be part of.
No. We are talking about this. And we're talking about what it has done to our country, and we're talking about what it's likely to do if we don't address it. We talk about corruption all the time, just as corruption. This is worse. Because this is the clearest form and indication and perpetration of impunity, and the consequences are dire.
0719-012-600. What do you think about this? I mean, what is the best way to deal with the ghosts of 2007, 2008 post-election violence? Solomon in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's still morning.
Solomon, you don't seem sure what time of the day it is.
Najua kujua imetokea but hata unasikia ni saa 6.
Okay. Jua la
Now,
saa 6 saa 2 asubuhi.
Yes.
Haya.
Now, my opinion on this, when it comes to maybe, especially the topic that maybe you have discussed today about rape.
Yes.
Sometimes communities use rape as a way of getting some superiority over the other community, and it more or less becomes like a cattle rustling. This community rapes this community. It's become like a revenge pattern. So, and sometimes you get to know the person who raped you, or you know where he comes from, and I believe the security agents can be able to tackle that very easily. What pains me more is, which is maybe can be out of topic, is the rape cases when it comes to our relatives, those kind of things. Because these are people who we know, and the security agents are very quiet on it, and they are being dealt by Mzawa Mtaani, and those cases are very, I don't know how to say about it. I've encountered one, and I was very bitter to the mother of that child. This is something that happened this year, and it's something that
you are bitter to the mother of the perpetrator.
No. Let me tell you the scenario. A guy rapes a 16-year-old lady.
Okay.
And the security agents held in custody the perpetrator. But the mother alienda akamhonga, askari ndiye atolewe. Because even the guy is not even a minor, he's a married guy. But he's being babied by the mother all around. So I asked the mother, what are you teaching your son? That it is okay to take a minor and do whatever he did. What are you trying to teach the society? You as a parent, not even you as a parent, what are you trying to teach the society? That it is okay. Which is not.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are not. Yeah.
That's very true.
And majority of these people you find, we know them, but how things are dealt with by our community, the victim is left with a lot of pain to deal with.
So how is the community dealing with that particular issue? So yes, the mother went and the mother got the son out. How is the community dealing with it? I mean, other people know what happened.
Yes. Yeah, so what happens, you see, the community will say, no, walikuwa na mapenzi, but you know, this guy is an adult enough to know this is a child. Yeah? So whatever kind of mechanism you put to lure the child, it was wrong in the first place.
That's very true.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Solomon. Have a good day in Mombasa. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Ongwana, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam, Mohammed.
Sir, nimefurahi kusikia mwalimu sauti yako, nachangamka kabisa.
Asante kaka.
Mungu akubariki, uendelee kuwa hivyo hivyo.
Asante.
Na nyote pamoja, lakini wazingine wasisikie nimewabagua. Unaendesha kipindi kizuri.
Asante Mohammed.
Anyway, nataka kuchangia. Wajua, he could behave abnormally. Root cause is we lack moral values. Once we lack moral values, we will always be behaving abnormally. Now, there were other things like, for example, when aid struck, a lot of teaching and sensitization of this issue all over in schools, in university, and even hizi boards za kujengea nyumba unaandikiwa habari ya AIDS hapo. Lakini he could behave abnormally is killing us indirectly more than what AIDS killed us. kitu cha kushangaza, why are we not keen and interested in insisting or instilling moral values across the board, kutoka nursery, primary, secondary, university, wabunge, MCA, senator, private entities, all across the board,
even in the
regularly,
villages,
constantly.
Mohammed, actually, let me ask you. So wewe, I'd assume wewe ni mzee wa kijiji pale Mwakijembe, sio? You are a respected person in the local community. What is it that you and those like you are doing to then inculcate these values and the moral values to the younger generations?
It always backfires.
Why? What happens?
Because whenever I call a gathering, my fellow wazees, let us come and discuss issues for our betterment. Oh, ni topic nzuri, idea mzuri, lakini you'll never see them coming.
Why do you think this is so, Mohammed?
Still, there's that lack of moral values.
So it's the same thing then,
now,
Mohammed, because then we're
yes,
saying
sir.
now
Yes, madam.
that we're saying now that state at that level, nobody wants to talk about this post-election violence. Nobody wants to talk about it and address the issues. Same thing at the lower level when we are looking at town, city, community. People don't want to come and talk about issues that affect them. Same thing at the top, no?
Okay, mimi nakubali. I agree with you, madam. You know, when kids go to school, they don't know ABCD, correct? They don't even know how to count 1 to 10, correct?
True. Correct.
But they are taught, they learn, and then they start knowing the letters, join the letters, get the words, speak the language, do the calculation, all along, paka upate PhD yako. There is that process. Now, learning is a continuous process.
It is.
Kusiwe na break katikati.
Kweli.
Na hii moral value, hata kama tutaanza chini, tutaenda nayo hivyo hivyo, though it will take time. It's the only remedy to all this cause root of our problems.
We must start somewhere.
So we must start somewhere. In fact, the education system should be involved in the curriculum and included all across from early child paka huku kwa PhD. Hata pia kuwe na session ya kufundisha hawa MPs wetu, MCs wetu saa zote regularly. We constantly keep on reminding them. Then maybe we will change. Retreat, yes.
Moral value retreat.
Yes.
Mohammed, thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. Time for us to say...
Wish you a blessed day, please.
Asante. Mohammed.
Asante, bye.
Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us since 7 o'clock. Join us again on Monday, 7 to 9. These conversations happen on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. In the next hour, in the 9 o'clock hour, we'll be looking at Chief Justice David Maraga. He is leaving office today. He's supposed to go on terminal leave from Tuesday next week. He retires on his 70th birthday in January next year, but he goes on leave. This is the end of it. We'll be reviewing his tenure in the judiciary and especially as Chief Justice. But we continue having this conversation. KTN Home, have a lovely day. You can tune in to Spice FM, Nairobi 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri it's 90.9 and Malindi 97.7.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working, and the assistant chef, wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko, anaenda huku na huku.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right. So, big landmark ruling from the High Court yesterday. Justice Weldon Korir, the perpetrators of post-election violence are still walking scot-free, ruling or no ruling in Nairobi. Wako sawa, wanaendelea na maisha yao. How do we get them to face justice?
I think the conversations, look, it needs to continue being talked about, because also once there's silence, there could be the false notion that it has been forgotten about. And once it leaves the mouths of people on a regular basis, to those who then have the power to do something about it, they also forget about it. Because, I mean, that's it. If you had a problem previously and it was in your face all the time, and then it goes away, what are you likely to do? You're likely to forget about it. So if you want them to pay some attention to it and really deal with it so that it doesn't come back, it has to be out. It has to be in the forefront all the time. It just has to. There's the tendency, or there's the temptation to forget and say, okay, let's talk about something else. But those then who were the victims, they never forget.
We moved on.
Yeah. And what was the speak that came out at that time? Just a month ago, when the DCI said that he was going to open this up again. What came out? We've moved on. Kenya has forgotten. No.
Actually, we haven't.
Kenyans have not forgotten.
If there's one thing we haven't done, is we haven't moved on. The fact that you sweep something under the rug doesn't mean it's gone. It's under the rug. And if you remove that rug, it'll be right there. And even if you don't remove the rug, it is still there.
You have a mother with a 12-year-old daughter. And this mother is looking at her 12-year-old daughter as she grows up. And the one thing that keeps nagging her mind is, will she face the kind of thing that I faced 12 years ago?
You know, rape.
She is a child who was born out of this rape experience.
Yes.
I have lived with it. There's nothing I can do to guarantee that she does not face.
Look at the difficulty of looking at that child, because that child is also a reminder of what you went through.
Yeah.
And you probably don't even know who the father of that child is.
You don't.
Now, rape has been used as a tool of violence for the longest time, from antiquity when people pillaged and invaded countries and so forth. But in modern time, it's deliberate. You know, one could say, though, it was incidental. No. Now, it's actually used as a deliberate tool because it is a very effective tool of subjugation.
Yeah.
And they know, it is known. Of all the things you can do, when someone focuses on that, it isn't as though they were suddenly, oh, what should we do? No. They had it in mind. And they knew exactly what it is that they were doing.
They knew.
Yes.
They knew what that does, not just to the woman, to the entire community. It's happened everywhere, even in the old wars. This is what would happen. Go, pillage, rape their women, and take them captive.
Yes. You know, and what one does, if you listen to what Liz was saying, your heart is always troubled. You aren't at ease. You are beset by all these concerns. There's trepidation around you. Put it this way, you live a constant life of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you want to consign someone to?
And then you say, we moved on.
No, we haven't moved on. No, on this particular, on that, we have. You can't move on.
Even when you do move on, quote unquote, you never really are going to be able to move on completely from something like that.
Yeah.
So
people talk of the Wagala massacre as though it happened yesterday. Look, these things that happen even in war, my friend, what they do is they entrench, forget perpetrate, they entrench a certain feeling that really takes a long time to dispel. And that is why you want to do everything within your means to avoid them. Because what these things set in motion are things that are going to be dealt with the generations long after you.
It's 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so I've been saying Forest Road for like months. It's Wangari Maathai Road. What once was Forest Road, Wangari Maathai Road, is the one that you can use to get into the CBD if you're coming from Thika Road, and it's looking really good still, even till now. Okay, Kiambu Road, looking a bit messy, getting onto Thika Road today, but around now we've gotten into the swing of things, so it's looking much better. Mombasa Road actually not behaving too badly today. Traffic is not too crazy. It is the day before the day where Eric has told us that, after today there will be no traffic. So let's wait and see what happens next week. But for now,
there'll be traffic.
it's looking good, guys,
Just
at least
people
on
will
this
not be
Friday.
thinking what they're doing.
Oh, right. People will not be aware that they're in traffic. But if you do get in traffic today, let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 9. We thank you very much for choosing The Situation Room. Listen every morning. 94.4 in Nairobi and around the country and around the world, online, streaming the show. As we begin the hour, C.T. Muga, take us to the Tuaregs.
God created lands and lakes and moors for man to live, and the desert so that he could find his soul.
When you're out there, out by yourself,
Mhm.
with your camel,
Yes.
seeing mirages, and thinking that's some water up ahead.
Actually,
the soul will come to you.
It does. If it had taken a walk, it'll come back. But significantly, if you're talking about desolation that comes with troubles, there are times in your life you can be surrounded by people, but you actually feel alone. One could argue that you are in a place that is akin to a desert because it's just you and the elements. It's a time, as they say, you confront yourself. And that's a time of awakening.
That's it. Huh?
It's reckoning, yes, but it's also awakening.
Time of awakening.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about the Chief Justice, David Maraga. So David Maraga leaves office today. He will not come back to the office next week because he officially retires at the age of 70 on the 12th of January next year. He's supposed to go on terminal leave from Tuesday next week. He, however, has indicated that he doesn't intend to be in office for the last 2 working days of his career. He says today will be the final day. So this basically is it for the Chief Justice, who has worked in the judiciary since 1978. Basically, practically, like all my life.
He's been in office longer than I've been alive.
Has been working in the judiciary. 25 years practicing as a lawyer, and then he was appointed as a judge of the High Court in Mombasa in 2003. He rose through the ranks into the Court of Appeal, into the Supreme Court as the President and Chief Justice of the Republic. He has served his tenure since his appointment in 2016. Now that term has come to an end because of the age limit that's placed on the Chief Justice of the Republic. So when you look back at the man and what he has done, especially in his tenure as Chief Justice, 2016 comes in, 2017 was just that one moment, right? Where everybody noticed, well, okay, we do have a Chief Justice who has done something that has never been done before. And this is when he nullified the presidential election and ordered that there be a repeat election. It wasn't his decision, it was a decision of the Supreme Court, but as the president of the Supreme Court, he's the one who made the announcement. Then over the last 5 years, he's basically just been, not 5, from 2017 up to now, he's just been, pushing and appearing to be at loggerheads, especially with the executive. And this is one matters of the support that the judiciary should be receiving in terms of financial support, in terms of resources that goes to the judiciary, and what should happen in the judiciary. Budget cuts going to the judiciary. He has been saying, you know what, the money that we need to ensure that we expand the access to justice across the country is this, and we need that. We need to build more courts. He's in fact said, these MPs who are refusing to pass that budget in Parliament are the same ones who come to my office and say, you know what, Bwana CJ,
We need this on this.
si utuweke kakoti hapa kwetu, a very, there has been a very old magistrate's court, and the magistrate is not even around. So why don't you? And he says, for me to do that, I need money. I need money. People need to feel the judiciary across the country. For a very long time, the judiciary was only concentrated in the major towns. People need to feel that they can get up and go, and there's a magistrate's court near them. There's a high court not far from the magistrate's court. There's a court of appeal not far from that. They need to feel access to justice, and he's been complaining about that. Got it to a point where it's the last speech that he made, he was making a direct appeal to the president, saying, Mr. President, it may appear as if we have personal differences, you and I, but they're not personal, really. It is Nikazi. Nikazi. It's nothing personal. I don't take it like a personal attack from you. I don't do anything that is personal toward or against you. Nikazi. The question then that comes in here is, what do you think is the legacy of Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga? What would you say that that legacy would be? Would it be, under his tenure, the judiciary has really been a punching bag. Under his tenure, we have seen lackluster delivery of justice. Under his tenure, we have seen judiciary taking a left turn. Or would you say that under Maraga's tenure, we have seen steps, progression towards attainment and delivery of justice?
The thing that stands out is actually dramatic. It was the nullification of the presidential election 2017. We can talk around expanding the judiciary, but if you go back to the time of the CJ just before him, you could argue that CJ had the benefit of having a president who seemed to understand that the judiciary needed to be expanded. And the judiciary was well funded. They expanded the human resource capacity. They expanded the physical structures that you require to do these things. It was during the time of Mutunga. And a lot of what you now hear, the back and forth regarding what can't be done because there aren't enough resources, one didn't hear much of it during Justice Mutunga's time. But the thing that Justice Maraga seems to have done that stood out, the one thing that nobody thought he would do, he simply said, no, this particular election, we need to go back to the ballot so that we can see. That has stood out because it was the first time such a thing had happened on this continent. And in the world, I think it was probably the second or the third time it had happened. It was a marvel. So everything else that we can say about him, that incident characterized him, and that incident now laid the path for the legacy that you're going to talk about. So when people talk about him being brave, it is because it is understood that people rarely stand up against the executive. That's what that particular decision was seen as. Someone who is willing to stand up against the executive. That's what it was seen as. Whether it was, that's a different debate.
Well, sure, but I think also then that following that, or maybe it was latent, and then the election then gave him an opportunity to then come out. Because there have been several things that he has said after that and has not been afraid to, quote unquote, fly in the face of authority. Okay? And has come out to say several things thereafter. On the steps of the court when he of the High Court, when he has come out and said things like, fund the judiciary. Number 2, appoint more judges. We need this to happen, and we've told you that it needs to happen. Court orders are being flouted. We need you to actually pay attention to this. And then we're not fighting, but I say, look, we need to have an audience for us to be able to talk about some of these things. We are not able to expend justice because of the fact that the state has not provided certain mechanisms that we have asked for in order to get these things done. It is not happening, and staying emboldened and saying, previously to what happened before or with a previous Chief Justice, he's going to, in no uncertain terms, all respectfully so, state what he needs to get his job done. And then where does it all end? In this wonderful thing where he says, all right, since the law is not being upheld, dissolve Parliament. Dissolve it, because clearly all of you are joking. So, and just on this one thing, that you've not been able to instate the 2/3 gender rule, you've not been able to do that. On those grounds, dissolve Parliament. As in, here we've been telling you things across the board over the last 2-3 years. Do this. Appoint more judges. Make us truly independent. Fund the judiciary. Okay. All of these things you've not been... Follow court orders. You've not been able to do that? Okay. Now, on my recommendation, which I have every right to do constitutionally, dissolve this parliament. And you have the responsibility to do so as the chief executive of the country. Do it on my recommendation. It seems to me that this is a man who will be remembered for that. Who will be remembered for saying, okay, yes, people are afraid to talk to the executive. I'm saying it. Respectfully so, but I am saying it.
You know, those two decisions that he announced, basically, if you just look at it, technically they were administrative. What he was doing.
They were.
Because the decision has been made. There's what has happened. People have gone to court, gone to the High Court. The case has gone to the Court of Appeal. The matter has been deliberated. The matter then has been brought before him. And what he's supposed to do is one thing.
He was announcing
one thing
a
only,
decision.
right?
Yeah.
The same thing with making the announcement of the Supreme Court decision in 2017. It was actually a ruling of the Supreme Court. The
Not
other
just
judges
him.
who voted and said, who are the ones who came out and said, I say go back, I say go back. Apart from the two judges who gave their dissenting opinion, it was a ruling of the majority. So he was the president of the Supreme Court sitting there and saying, this is
what they have said.
We have to look back also and see, probably that is a bigger side of the legacy, is that he allowed the judges to do their work without feeling that, if I take a decision that is going to be against the executive, there's going to be somebody there who's a gatekeeper. Is the Chief Justice, the decision comes, this is what we're supposed to do. Okay, you've done your work. All right. My job is to make the announcement. I have made the announcement. It's not my job to say, okay, it was 5 against 2, but you guys, we can talk about this. No. He stood by the decision of the majority in that case. He stood by what has been said by other judges in the case of dissolution of parliament because of the gender rule. So you can look back and see this is a Chief Justice who decided, I'm going to allow the judges, the magistrates, to do what they're supposed to do. If you make a ruling and the ruling goes against the government, you make the ruling. I will stand by you and I will say, a ruling has been made by a lower court that the executive is not obeying. I will not say that we know my judges sometimes
they don't know what they're doing.
Wanavutanga nini kidogo, just forgive them. Some of these decisions he has never come out to say I don't agree with the decision of it. He says, as long as a court has ruled, that's it.
But also significantly, when he came into the office in 2016, the case backlog, as was reported then, 300,000. And one of the things he did was he promised that he would reduce those case backlogs. And at the last count of June this year, we were at 35,359. So, if you're talking about it, over 250,000.
Not a bad count.
Yes. So, but what is underlying in the discussion is an understanding that we've had for the longest time, is that when someone is appointed as the Chief Justice, you are a state project. You are there to rubber stamp state decisions. And this is why what Justice Maraga has done is what he's supposed to do. That's his job.
Why it's surprising people, however, CT, is because maybe previous Chief Justices would not come out in the manner in which he has. And that's why it would appear to be that he's bullish. But he's actually doing his job, bullish in nature. And again, I repeat, although respectfully, is that he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's doing his job.
And actually, that, in my mind, seems to be the issue. When we talk about state officers and the problems that arise from the offices, often it is the functions and the duties are known, but they're not being done. And so we say, look, this ought to be done. This is how this thing should have been carried out. But you can clearly see that's not what is being done. Now, when someone stands up and is forthright and is clear, it again shows that we actually like things which are obfuscated. This clarity is a bit disturbing. It's like too much light. Why is this guy telling us the truth that we don't particularly want to hear?
Yeah, I mean, what's wrong with him?
Yes. Does he not know how he should behave?
Or how people before him behaved.
Yeah, should he not respect the executive and just play along like everybody else? Play along.
Maybe people are just looking at him from his demeanor, the way he's a calm man, he speaks softly, then he's a staunch Christian, he's an SDA. Because the same was not expected of Willie Mutunga.
In fact, what we see in Maraga was what many people expected
to come
of
from William Mutunga.
Yeah,
Exactly.
16 minutes after 9, we're continuing this conversation. Join the conversation. What, in your opinion, will be David Kenani Maraga's legacy in the judiciary, especially as Chief Justice? Good morning. Let's take a look at the weather.
They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot belly people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that. No,
is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi. Sun seems to be disappearing on some fronts. Highs of 26 and lows of 17 going into the weekend. It's mostly sunny in Nakuru at 20. Highs of 26 and lows of 15. Mostly sunny conditions in Nyeri at 19. Highs of 24 coming down to lows of 10. And in Eldoret, it's mostly cloudy at 14. We'll see highs of 23 today and lows of 12. Sunny conditions in Kisumu. Highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's also mostly sunny in Kakamega through this Friday. Highs of 27 and lows of 14. 27 is what's happening in Mombasa at the moment. And it's still raining. Highs of 31 and lows of 25. Sunny conditions in Malindi at 22. Highs of 27 and lows of 16. Kampala this morning is sunny at 20. It'll go to highs of 25 and lows of 18. Where Dar es Salaam is rainy still at 29. The highs will be 32 and lows of 27. Johannesburg is sunny at 21. It'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 18. And it continues to rain in Lagos this morning at 26. Highs will be 32 and lows of 25. It's raining in Kinshasa at 23. Highs of 32 and lows of 23. It's a bit sunny in Beijing. However, at 6 degrees, that will be the high for today, going down to lows of -6. Paris at 8 degrees is raining combined with the cold weather. 11 the high and lows of 8. 100% chance of rain through the weekend. 100% chance of rain also in London. Mostly sunny conditions at 10. Highs of 11 and lows of 7. And finally in New York, going into the Friday, clear at 6. Highs of 11 and lows of 6.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
19, 20 minutes after 9. What is Chief Justice David Maraga's legacy? What would you say will be Chief Justice David Maraga's legacy? After today, this man is not coming back to the office. He's supposed to be proceeding on leave from Tuesday next week. And then he retires officially on his 70th birthday on the 12th of January 2021. But now he proceeds on terminal leave. He has indicated that today will be the final day. He's supposed to have a lunch on Tuesday with a senior counsel bar before exiting without fanfare. But he'll leave a judiciary that has demonstrated that it not only barks, but it can bite as well. Okay? This is what he has done over these years, and we've been looking at that. The man's demeanor, soft, even when he comes out to speak, he's not sounding like he's that fire breathing. He's coming out to say, Mr. President, when we deliver justice, this is what we need. This is what, and people look back and wonder, so are you complaining? But you don't listen. If you listen to the message, the man is basically saying, "This is what we're supposed to do. This is what's supposed to happen."
But you know,
And he's
people
not backing down.
You know, as a leader, there's something significant that must be said here. People tend to take a cue from the leader. When you have a Chief Justice who seems to respect the rule of law, as we've seen the justice to be, judges take the cue. During his tenure, we've had rulings that you look at and say, whoa, 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 whoa. And why we go, whoa, whoa, whoa? Because we know some of those rulings are against the state. And the state comes back and says, the bottleneck in the fight against corruption is
Judiciary.
Yes.
I even see someone like a chief magistrate in the anti-corruption court coming out publicly and saying, you know what, this, I could do my job much better if I was given
something as a research assistant.
Yes. But before that, you may not have seen. In fact, now we invite judges to interviews
and they
magistrates,
come.
and they're like, okay, when tomorrow? Okay, let's talk. We want to talk about children. Yeah, there's a problem here in the rights of children. There's a problem. There's an issue here in the laws the way they are, in how we're able to then deliver justice. Yes, there's a problem somewhere in between. In fact, even sometimes in the judiciary, there's openness.
Yes, there is openness. You actually get to talk to very senior judicial officers, and they speak to you candidly about it. Now, that tells you that they've taken the lead from the leader. There's an openness about the way they want to do things. If you have questions, ask them. We will do our best to perhaps respond.
Where before you would never be able to reach these individuals.
Actually, the thing it does, at least the thing it has done for me, it's given me confidence in the judiciary. This feeling that, when your case goes to court, there will be justice at the end of it.
There's likelihood.
Yes. Not that it'll favor me necessarily, but at least I'll get a fair shake. Now, this is something which may have been present in the past, but it wasn't something that was in the public mind.
I want to ask about corruption in the judiciary, but let's do that after we hear from Ed Gitonga, our friend in Nyeri. Good morning, Ed.
Morning, guys. How are you doing?
Good. Fine, thank you.
Now, I think there's a scripture that says that most people love using in obituaries, a Corinthians scripture. You've fought the good fight. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
No. Repeat that again, please.
So, in the book of Corinthians, I think there's a scripture that says you fought the good fight, etc. Exactly. Now, before I came into the matatu industry, I was working for a certain lawyer in Nyeri. I was his court clerk, so I was in the innings of the law of the court now and then. And I can tell you this, even from the ground, the work that Maraga has done, it's just spectacular. And it's spectacular in the sense that look at this. You're in court. A magistrate or a judge doesn't miss court anytime. Rarely cases go unmentioned unless maybe a lawyer is unavailable.
Yep.
It was just smooth sailing. Now look at this. As you had said previously, most guys when they are appointed in that position, they usually like rubber stamp of the government, right? But Maraga has been a principled person in the sense that this is my duty. This is what I need to do. It's not about whether you give me this job. It's about how am I going to do my job. I think Mutunga and Maraga, whoever is going out to succeed Maraga, he or she needs to keep up that on that note. That's it.
Stay up there with that.
Yes, because to be quite honest with you, Maraga has done amazing.
Okay.
And we don't need anything less, because if we go back to the draconian era again in court, just going to stop.
All right. So Ed, let me just tell you that you're saying it's who? Thessalonians or Corinthians?
Corinthians.
No, it's actually
Corinthians.
Timothy.
2 Timothy chapter 4.
Is it Timothy?
Yes, it is.
4:7.
Chapter 4, verse 7. I have fought the good fight. Actually, it's Paul's valedictory. I'll start from verse 6. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing.
Ed, in case you didn't know, Eric's day job is that he's a purveyor of the gospel. That's why he can quote it with such accuracy.
He is an evangelist. He had even to confirm which it is.
Yes, it is.
Tusikengeusha waamini.
But Ed, usijali, Timothy Simbale sana na Corinthians.
They were all written by Paul.
Sorry?
It was all Paul's writing.
Yes, it was all written by Paul.
Yes.
Thank you, Timothy. Ed, have a good day.
Have a good one too.
Thanks.
0719-012-600. What do you think? What would be Justice David Maraga's legacy? And so, first of all, if we just look at these two Chief Justices that we've had, it's after the new constitution.
Yes.
The one just before that, Justice Evan Geshero, also had his moments. For example, that moment of the cleanup of the judiciary, that he had appointed Justice Ringera. Review, look at the judges, you have a free hand, look, investigate. Who is it that is suitable to sit here? Within the powers that he had at that moment, at that time, within the kind of influence that the Justice Evan Geshero had, he did that.
You know, there's something that Justice Evans Geshero did that perhaps may not be discussed at great length. But when it came to the issue of Dr. Robert Ouko's death, when then he had been a permanent secretary, one Mr. Ezekiel Yugi, had determined that he was going to give evidence. The presiding judge in the Kisumu court at that time was Justice Evans Geshero. Now, he did something that was unprecedented. He allowed. By the way, that matter didn't go far. The case was never heard. The evidence he had didn't go anywhere.
He was actually chair of the commission. Eh?
He was, and he allowed. Now, we've had justices who've done things that actually stand out. But remember, in Justice Gisheru's time, I think it was even more difficult to do what he was doing.
Yeah.
We didn't have this new constitution. This space that we speak of, that we now take for granted, didn't exist. But remember, he stood his ground. That thing was disbanded.
Real quick.
Disbanded. End of that story.
In fact, they never concluded hearings.
No, they didn't.
The Ouko Commission.
No, they didn't.
And there was a lot of talk because of how Justice Evan Geshero is conducting it. It's being too independent. People are just coming here to talk and say things.
The other justice who had a lot of respect among his peers was Justice Chunga. When I speak to people who are in this particular space, they speak well of him, and they say he's a man who handled the affairs of the judiciary well. However, the problem with any of these appointments was that there was always the underlying feeling that this is a project of the state and the executive.
Yeah.
Okay. And when it comes to Justice Maraga, remember, it's President Uhuru who actually set him up, in my opinion. Because around the time when he was appointed, the president happened to have been in Kisii, and of course he did mention that, I've appointed one of your sons. So the moment the president says such a thing, it is assumed that this is the president's person. And it goes without saying, therefore, that anything the president wants, the president gets. So when he actually did his job and conducted himself judicially, that is speaking, people felt surely something is amiss here. But the thing that we must be remembered is that all these justices and all these people who hold high offices are human beings with faults. And why I like talking about leaders with faults is this. I like to have a person in leadership who has faults because it makes them more amenable to understanding other people's issues. These faultless type leaders, not very useful.
Not very good, eh?
Not very useful.
What do you think? What is Justice David Maraga's legacy? We'll also be taking your calls, 0719-012-600, and reading some of the comments that you're posting on social media. Shortly, we'll also be announcing the winners of the Peptang Hamper this morning. Remember, we asked 2 questions. I'm going to repeat the questions when I'm giving the answer. Very many people have been sending their responses. And our main man at the social media desk, and this is Brian Amolioto, has picked the 10 winners for this morning. We are going to hear who they are. 9:30, let's see what's happening on the roads this Friday morning, and then we look at what you are saying about Justice David Maraga.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, twende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
What is your best uji for weaning and how do you prepare it? Famila Porridge Flour from Unga Group offers the best variants including Famila Strawberry and Famila Banana. Bet you like the taste of that. Link up with me, Monique, on the Spice Drive every weekday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. to learn how you too can prepare the best uji mix for your child and your family.
Dear mama, you are appreciated.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Oh,
Traffic.
Right. So traffic this morning actually looking pretty good. It is now, making me very happy. That's so not so much traffic on the roads today, not tomorrow. Today, getting off Mombasa Road is also looking pretty good. As you then join from Langata Road and then join at that roundabout headed towards Uhuru Highway. It's holding up a little bit, and then you get out towards the CBD also, it doesn't look so bad. So it looks like a good day in terms of traffic. I don't know what the afternoon is going to look like, but from all indications, it might just be good. But then again, it is Nairobi, so we never know. So just be careful. If you have been out already, you get where you're going in good time. We'll probably see it lifting again in the evening and then clogging up some. Either way, talk to us, Spice FMKE on Twitter, or text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
6 minutes to 10. So this morning we hosted the CEO of Premier Food Industries Limited, Joseph Choge. And it's a house of Peptan. And we were talking about what they do as an organization, how they've been here, they've been operating for 85 years this year, what the kind of products that they have, all of them locally made from fruits that are locally sourced. They have so many. They have Peptan, everything Peptan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They have peanut butter. They have
githeri.
They have githeri.
Jam.
Canned githeri. There's jam.
Juice. Hey.
Tomato sauce.
Ketchup, chili, sauces.
Hey. All of them. So the question that he said he's going to leave us with 10 hampers for 10 lucky winners. And there were 2 questions that we're asking. 1, list the variants of the Peptan peanut butter. And 2, list any 3 variants of Peptan jam. Our main man, Brian Amrioto, told you to cheza kama wewe na atacheza kama yeye. So he has chezed kama yeye.
Wow. Okay. Uh-huh.
The 10 winners. Ricky Musa says the variants of the peanut butter are healthy creamy, 2 healthy no added sugar, and 3 healthy crunchy. And the variants of peptang jam are strawberry, red plum jam, mixed fruit jam. So those answers from Ricky Musa, from Jamo Tanui, from Rachel James, right? That's what I've said, Rachel James.
Yes. That's what you've said.
And then there's
you've said it twice, actually.
Mary Sakau, Rosie Gichobi, Charles Makomolo. He says, let me try again. He had tried earlier and he was told where. Peptang healthy crunchy, Peptang healthy creamy, and Peptang healthy no added sugar. And then he said Peptang pineapple jam, Peptang orange marmalade jam, and Peptang strawberry jam. All right. So he says, situation room, please let it be my Christmas gift from your panel. This is your Christmas gift from our panel, Mr. Charles Makomolo. So you get that as well. Bekima Mlawasi, you also answered the questions and you got it right. And Naf Naf on Twitter. Naf is at Lea Nahulo. Lea Nahulo on Twitter. You also get it right. The 10th, no, this is the 8th. Grant on, and the 10th winner is College Dropout at Kiki Brayo. At Kiki Brayo, College Dropout, you're also getting the winner. So all of you, all 10 of you, congratulations. You have your Christmas gifts from Premier Foods Limited, the House of Peptang. You get the Peptang. So you'll have the peanut butter in there. You'll have some jam in there. You'll have, of course, the Peptang tomato sauce will be in there in that hamper. So all 10 of you, congratulations. Brian Amulioto will contact you directly on social media, and then you'll arrange how you can collect the hampers. Okay, back to the conversation about the legacy of Mr. David Maraga, Chief Justice. Sindano, what does Sindano say?
So Sindano says, with CJ Maraga, we see a student of Montesquieu, a firm believer in the separation of powers. Actually, if you look at, so he was a French judge, right? And he actually did come about the theory of the separation of powers. So Sindano is likening the two, CJ Maraga to Montesquieu, and says the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. This separation ensures checks and balances, a vaccination against tyranny. Sadly, discourse shall circle the politics.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting correlation between the two gentlemen.
Okay. Geoffrey in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, Geoffrey.
Well, I'm glad to listen to your conversation.
Asante.
And to make a contribution regarding Maraga.
Yeah.
Maraga case reminds me about the most recent proverb that we were given by City Muga. That indeed good people die, but their deeds
Death does
can
not
always be remembered.
kill their name.
Yes. Despite the challenges that Maraga faced, he proved that he was actually up for the task that he was given. And he actually had the merit to execute his duties. Well, even those who are against him, I believe they will have to remember him for standing his ground and proving his patriotism in this country. And this tells me that in Kenya here we still have got good people who can work well for our institutions and make sure that Kenyans really enjoy what they need from us. But the most unfortunate thing is most of their appointees are made based on political alignments. So this is the cancer that will never make us progress. But Maraga, cheers for him. He has
been
done
a good
good
man.
job.
But Geoffrey, any blemish on Maraga at all?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think to me his work was perfect.
So you give him 100%, 100 out of 100, or
Well,
98?
I won't give him 100%. I'll prefer giving him 85% because, human must have some his problems here and there, but 85% will be good for him.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeffrey.
Have a great day.
Cheers.
And
You too.
a nice weekend ahead of you.
You too. 0719-012-600. What is David Maraga's legacy? George in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning to you, good guys. How are you doing there?
We are very well.
Oh, well, thank you for giving me this opportunity at least to contribute my views.
Yes.
I would like to actually appreciate this guy, Maraga. Now, one of the legacies that he left behind, which actually had a very significant impact in my life, and this I want to actually mention without fear that I used the same quote that he actually used during his interview when I was subjected to an arbitration hearing in the office of Assistant County Commissioner. So shortly before I started my point, I begged the ACC to allow me a quote. I mentioned the quote of Chief Justice Maraga. And this is what I said. I actually borrowed it from Maraga himself, that the greatness of a nation lies in its fidelity and of course with the strict adherence, the fidelity to its constitution and the strict adherence to the rule of law, and above all the fear of God. Now I saw the ACC nodding his head, and of course he said that I can see you've just hit the nail right on the head. So throughout the discussion, he kept on repeating and repeating and repeating the same word. So it means that words from Maraga's mouth had impact on the people, and this one I personally attest.
All right.
Yes.
So you believe that he has performed very well. Out of 100%, how would you score him?
Being human being, I'll actually give him 87, or probably 80, above 85.
So this 13%.
Yes.
If he came to the office and asked you, Mwalimu, where did I go wrong? What did you tell him?
I think he tried, but to some extent, I think because his hands were tied, because I can see him trying to actually make sure that justice prevailed throughout the country. But due to the fact that he was not in power, he had to rely on the executive office to some extent. His hands were tied and therefore was not able to actually deliver as far as he was maybe willing to do. So due to human being nature, you see, we just have to understand. So not that I'm denying him the 13%, but because he was not able to deliver it to 100%, yes.
Those factors beyond his control.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you are right there.
Thank you very much, George. Charles in Homer Bay, good morning.
Hello, guys. How are you, morning?
We're fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for the Xmas gift, first of all.
Karibu sana.
Let me now contribute to Maraga's legacy.
This is Charles Makomolo.
Yeah, Charles Makomolo.
Okay.
Let me say this about Maraga. There's a saying that they say, I came, I fought, and I conquered.
Yes.
It reflects so much to Maraga. Because right now, when someone has conquered something, when he or she leaves, people talk about the good things about him or her. That is someone who has conquered. Like King Solomon conquered, like David conquered. Like we talk much of good things they do. And Maraga is the same person. In that they say, during crisis, the wise people build bridges, but the fools build dams. Maraga built a bridge in the judiciary, and he built a bridge during the crisis of election. And now we can have the good deeds that he did for us. To me, I give him a 95%, because no one is perfect.
You're a very generous
Thank you,
teacher, Charles. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how Charles are. Ukisikia mwalimu na ni Charles, you've passed.
There are teachers who believe intrinsically that it is not possible, even if you get everything right.
Not possible to pass.
You can't get a mark above 80, even if you've got everything right.
They will go back and start looking, okay, here you skipped a step. You should have written is equals.
Instead of just equals.
Yes, reminds me of a time when we had an interview and one of my colleagues decided to favor a candidate and give them the marking scheme. Unfortunately, just before the exam, we changed some questions.
Oh, no.
Not that we knew, but how it came up was that this particular candidate managed to get 102%.
When you put all the numbers together.
Yeah, you added it. So they actually crammed, I think, the responses and started answering questions that nobody had actually asked. Of course, needless to say, they didn't get the job.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this colleague also didn't last very long in their job either.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was traced back.
Okay. You know, there's something we are very good at as Africans. Well, it's time for someone to leave. At exit, whether it's exit and we are saying goodbye because umetuacha duniani, unaenda huko kwingine.
We say wonderful things.
We say very wonderful things. When you are here on earth, look at what we are hearing about David Maraga today. I mean, he did a very good job. He has tried. What were the flaws? What is it that has happened in the Maraga that then we can say, okay, we would have expected to move to a certain point. In the fight against corruption within the corridors of justice, have we moved? Can we say that Maraga actually, there's what you can say through his action, through his words, through his deeds, there's something that Maraga did to ensure that complaints and feelings of corruption within the corridors of the judiciary were dealt with?
There's something that they started off. You see, it doesn't matter who came up with the idea, but if it's under your watch, it is you, okay? They started a system of determining the effectiveness of our courts, our high courts, okay? And the effectiveness of judges. Self-assessment. This is not something I've heard of before. If it was there, I just hadn't heard of it. But what became clear, remember, the court in Meru took that particular cup, meaning, and there's one particular judge who was mentioned, someone who cleared their dockets. They had the case logs, the case were almost at zero, meaning whatever arrived at them was dealt with. Whatever was under the purview was dealt with. And there was a performance index, so you could tell this particular court in this part of the country is not doing very well. They don't seem to move with their cases. Now, it also means that if there is a resident judge or a presiding judge that in that particular district or county, then you can also judge. Because how do we judge them? We judge them by several indicators. One, the number of cases that are managed, the backlog, customer satisfaction, the people you work with, how happy they are. That particular project of self-examining, I had never seen it before. And I don't know of any other government agency that does that. That comes up with a matrix that says, okay, this is how we are going to show you.
How we're going to be looking at
our performance.
Our internal review, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Internal peer review mechanism as well.
That to me is something excellent. But what I found lacking though was, maybe it was there, but it just wasn't published, or it wasn't in the paper, so to speak, was the assessment of the judges themselves as people. Because it is one thing, someone may be an excellent administrator, but they're a horrible person.
In terms of their personal character.
Yes, in terms of their getting along ability with others. Yes.
So they use a getting along abilitometer.
Yes, that.
I can't repeat that. She said once.
That's what I was going to ask. I was just about to ask you. Wow, I'm still at getting.
You know, the other day, I moderated a debate for magistrates. There was an election into the Judicial Service Commission.
Yes.
And the Judges and Magistrates Association was then participating. In fact, all the 500 plus magistrates in the country were participating just last weekend in an election to elect one of them to join the Judicial Service Commission. And among the things that were coming out, even the questions from the people who were following the discussion and the panelists themselves, was about the welfare of the judicial officers at magistrate level. And simple matters of administration, for example, how disciplinary proceedings are conducted. Now, this is an organ of justice. That there is so much injustice in how disciplinary proceedings are conducted
within the judiciary.
Within the judiciary. So somebody, for example, is facing a disciplinary hearing. Who do they hear it from? They hear it from the Chief Justice already coming down. So all avenues of appeal have ended because
essentially
it's your boss.
It's locked.
It's your boss. And how then that is handled, what you hear, how you proceed with, getting your case heard, how you want to present your case before whatever panel is appointed. That's an issue that came out. The other issue was about, for example, simple welfare matters like security for magistrates. So judges, once you're appointed a judge, you get this security. As a magistrate, and you're the one who's dealing with the people on a daily basis, you're handling some cases, you do not have access to security. And they were saying, there are some cases that you're handling, and because of how you're handling that case, you're receiving direct threats. You're a magistrate somewhere in Tana River, and you're receiving direct threats because of the way you're handling a particular case. And you've been posted there. You're not even a local in this community. So you are sort of exposed. Some of these matters, if you listen to them, the CJ is the head of the Judicial Service Commission.
Yes.
So it could still come back to, okay, how have you, as Chief Justice, during your tenure as Chief Justice, made sure that you're living, especially somebody who's worked in the judiciary for so long, so many years, you then know what has happened, you have interacted with your peers for all this. How have you ensured that their welfare will be taken care of even going forward? How have you championed that and led that?
Wouldn't this have been a nice thing if some magistrate could call in and tell us exactly what they think about this? Because in all honesty, I would expect nothing less. Any leader has to have some feet of clay. Yes. You must.
Look,
There'll
I mean,
be
I
faults.
think it would go without saying that then there was some. I think it would be a split. That those who felt that under his leadership and during his tenure, that things may have gotten worse, or they didn't feel that it was across board in terms of how it was for them. Now, there's the part of justice for the country, right? Then there's the part of justice for those who
The people who you work with you.
under him, right? So, and within that, there also could be a split. Those who felt, okay, great. Since he's come, there are certain changes that we've seen. We are more independent. There are things that we're able to do. There are others who would feel, actually, no, we are still tight-roped. That tether is very short. We're not able to do what we would need. There are certain provisions that have not been made. We're not able to do our job with ease. I think you would find a split.
You will even
there were
hear-
those who would feel that he did a terrible job.
You will hear criticisms of favoritism. But remember, leadership really is not a popularity contest. Because the moment you have to make decisions, there'll be decisions that are made. There are those who will be happy with them. There are those who won't be. It's like the presidency, not a popularity contest. Believe me. From what I have observed, one, that job is a lot harder than it appears to be. But secondly, you are going to please some, but the majority of people will not be happy. And the thing is, then the president doesn't have 10 assistants. It's just president. Then one assistant called a deputy. Okay? Deputy is good because everything can be pushed up and said president.
It's his fault.
Yes,
Our
but
fault.
anything that goes wrong, now, if you're head of the judicial service, even something that you're not aware of, and it goes wrong,
it's you.
And someone mentions your name, it is you. For the longest time in this country, all someone needed to do was mention the president's name or some powerful persons, with the full knowledge that you're not going to call that person to find out whether it's true or not. You would rather just abide by than have a situation where it may actually be true. So, a lot of impunity was passed on that way. Now, we're talking about a culture that exists. Do you imagine that when you have a new justice, and there's a system that has existed, that system will, or the underlying belly of the system will simply vanish because you have a new justice? No. There are those who will know exactly what to do so that they appear to be good in the eyes of the person in power, while busy conducting the business as they see fit. Because, for instance, our courts have been accused of corruption. The High Court has been accused of corruption. Remember, this is the bit I find funny. That you're accused of corruption, then we're going to come to you again to accuse you of corruption. Okay? But from among their own, we've had judges dismissed. Have we not? We've had judges who have had cases, again, in court. Doesn't it sound funny? A judge with a case in court. Why? Because we expect judges to be above...
Squeaky clean.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're human. They will not be squeaky clean. So, how do you balance it? And who balances it? And whose balance works out?
That's the thing.
But at the end of the day, the question I would ask is, he had a mandate, he had a job to do.
Did he do his job?
Did he do his job? And his job is not just ensuring that legal processes are followed, but did he manage the affairs of the people who work under him? Because if the affairs are managed well, then the affairs of people who bring cases to them will be managed well. At least a platform from which they can now function.
I think also as we look at it, I think he did get his fair share of criticisms across board, because even when we saw that questions were being asked in terms of now from him to the executive saying, look, we need more funding to be able to get this done. I believe the numbers we're looking at was 50% cuts that they had to deal with sometime last year. And he said, how do you expect us to do our work when already we were falling behind? How are we supposed to do our job? And I think one of the criticisms that came out was, what have you done with what you have? That are we trying to say that with the money that you have right now, nothing can be done, so we're going to sit and cross our arms and nothing will actually happen in terms of justice in the country? So I think there was that constant ask for, with what you have been given so far, what have you been able to achieve, even as you wait for what could then come later? That question was never really answered.
But you know what's going to be an interesting discussion? Who will succeed him?
Right now we have Philomena Mwilu in an acting capacity and court cases flying left, right and centre in terms of her eligibility for the role. Be interesting to see what that comes out.
Okay, today's proverb as we go into the weekend.
God created lands and lakes and moors for man to live, and the desert so that he can find his soul. When people speak of wildernesses, a wilderness doesn't have to mean that it's a place that is awash with vegetation. No. The desert can be the ultimate wilderness because nothing really happens. I mean, when I say nothing happens, it's just endless sand. However, as I said, it's a place with very little distractions. So it's a place where you can confront and face yourself. Now, your wilderness, we spoke to Liz this morning. Her wilderness was the terrible effects of the rape that she encountered. There are people in this country who don't have jobs. That's their wilderness. That's their desert moment. There are people who've been disenfranchised. There are people who are facing all myriad of problems. There are people who are unwell. There are people who are COVID positive. And the list goes on and on and on. But it provides one with an opportunity to reflect on many things that ordinarily you wouldn't if you were not desolate.
Coming to the weekend, we wish you a lovely Jamhuri Day. Let's see what the president says tomorrow. We'll be looking at what he has said. Come Monday, it's a lovely Friday into Saturday into Jamhuri. You have uninterrupted music from now until 3 o'clock. Some good songs coming up, including like a song by Johnny Kemp, Just Got Paid. Or this one that starts the hour is The Weekend Thing. Let's Stay Together by Tina Turner. We have Nelly Furtado coming up. Very, very good music. Have a lovely weekend, folks. Talk to you on Monday. It's now 10 o'clock.